Matthews and Ralph Kay, tonight being their final meeting on the board until elections decide otherwise. But I want to thank you both for your service. Con, you've been here quite a while, and you've done your part, and I'm happy to serve with you. And, Ralph, thank you for stepping in for a short time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other
Yeah, just a few shout outs. I know that we mentioned this to our staff and our families prior to vacation, but as is customary, we have Earth Day at the elementary school. I want to give a shout out to Mr. Mike Shelburne, our grade 1 teacher, for organizing that event. That happens, it's been happening for several years now, so thank you to Mike and the elementary school team for organizing that day. And also, kind of a newer addition to the district at the high school level, junior senior high school level, the Wellness Day, which Ms. Margolis and Ms. Earhart, who's here this evening, co-planned that event. That's the second wellness event of the year, so that's a good segue into the lip sync contest, which kind of ends the day for our junior senior high school students. So thank you to all of those staff members for all their efforts with those pre-vacation days for our students.
Approval of minutes. Does anyone have any comments on minutes from last meeting?
Do we move to approve it and then talk about it?
Yeah.
Tim's not here, so maybe.
Yeah. Sorry.
I'm trying to remember.
Not officially voting on a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any comments or questions?
I gotta look through them again. Nope. Actual meeting.
Make a motion to approve the minutes. We already did that.
Right.
Second. Yeah, we're all done. Okay, all right. It's Tim, good. Tim, take over.
Good.
All the motions.
I agree with the minutes. I read them.
Okay.
All right. Sorry. All right. All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Public participation. Any public participation? Sure.
Hi, Mr. Green, Professional Rights and Responsibility Chair of the Brookfield Teachers Association. Two things I want to talk about. First is talk from the Select Board about tuitioning the students out. I feel like that's a very short-sighted and dangerous route to go for the town. It would basically hand all responsibility to another town. There would be no school committee to vote on to decide things. Basically, the town would be giving over all control to another town without any input or say in that matter. Second of all, I'd like to talk about the possibility of budget cuts. Obviously, one of the things that oftentimes gets cut are the fine arts and the electives in the school. For our school, it's one of our highlights of the school. If you happen to ever get downstairs to the basement, you'll see the art area is decorated with fantastic murals. Our RISE program has murals on the walls. I think the high school wing now has some, all done by our art students. It's a fantastic job. Our band performed admirably at numerous places, especially during the basketball season with their pep band, along with all the concerts. Our STEM program is fantastic, and our physical education program is phenomenal also. So all these things are important. They keep kids in district, and obviously budgets are tight, but I would urge the school committee and the townspeople to fight for the schools and for those programs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Jeff?
Do we have a final agreement with Quabog as to what the choice out would be, what our input may or may not be?
We don't have any communication with
Then
Quabog.
what, yeah, but our esteemed partner back here just said is not accurate.
There's been no formal communication with the school committee on that
I
matter.
understand. But we're not there yet.
Are you looking for a number that they would cost for the tuitioning out of the students? Is that what you're talking about?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm just asking what you're asking exactly.
What I'm saying is that, well, his statement was that we have no input into what our students will be receiving at the receiving school.
Under a tuition agreement, which is not like a regionalization.
I
Would
understand.
have created a new school board, including representatives from our
Right.
town. Under a tuitioning agreement, there would be no representation of our town through a school committee. We would have no representation on that school committee, so we have no say in policy or budget or anything like that. So,
Until we have a final agreement, how can you say that?
because it's not typically part of a tuitioning agreement.
Well,
So
make it-
it's a whole other
Make
legal.
it part of it.
All right, we'll get our finest lawyers on it, I guess, because that's not a typical part of an agreement. If it was gonna be, then it would be regionalization, and they rejected regionalization, so.
Is this school committee even interested in talking about it with Quabog?
Can you state your name for the record, please?
Tara Hayes,
Address?
11 Wigwam Road.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, is this school committee at all interested in talking with Quabog about the tuitioning out program?
Right now, we are not formally looking into it, because it's not something that's been voted on, it's not something that's been officially discussed. So it's all comments from outside, and we're addressing those.
But I thought there was a meeting.
No, there have been no meetings.
I thought there was a meeting that you were on.
It
as
was
the
not
chair
a
of the
meeting.
School committee.
It was not a meeting, and I will get to that in a moment. But those are not meetings. They were not open meetings, so.
Informational sessions, I'll rephrase.
Yes.
I'm Chet LaBelchick from 4 Barrett Road. I didn't know you wanted to know that.
It's protocol, and
Yes, I
thank you
understand.
so much. I'm sure you're
So,
familiar.
no,
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry, it's just-
I know you. The other thing that needs to be brought up is that in order to consider, and I know John wants to talk about this later, but in order to consider tuitioning out, it also has to be voted on by the town. It's not just the school committee.
I'm not sure about that. You
It
sure?
is.
You
Kathleen,
sure?
Yes, I am.
I'm not sure about that.
Kathleen Creevy of Ward Street. The superintendent of schools from Quabog said no to what you just said, no. That does not have to come, the regionalization has to come before
The
a town vote, but not tuitioning out.
I can't quote the.
I'm just telling you what the superintendent of schools from Quabog told us at that informational
So then this
meeting.
is something that needs to be researched, because I was told by somebody who is in the know with this, and so you're told by somebody who's in the know with this, so then it actually needs to be researched, because no one is sure. We don't have the Mass General Law quoted.
Is there gonna, again, Kathleen Creevy of Ward Street, is there any intention of having a discussion on this? Are you going to look into anything, or are we dropping the ball?
John said he was gonna mention it later, it's further in the agenda.
Okay.
Any other public participation?
Kristen Grande, Oakham Road. I just kind of really wanted to really briefly just give a positive family perspective. My family has been in town for only 8 years, so we were exposed to other school systems before moving here. And I know there's a lot of talk and a lot of things coming down, and I think it's important sometimes to remember how much this particular school has meant to a lot of our families and a lot of our kids. I have 2 active students. I have a recent graduate. And I just think it's an important thing to know that my current college freshman is being asked to participate in things being sought out on her college campus very specifically because of the education she received here, because of the additional science classes she was offered, because of the TA opportunities she was given, things that I don't necessarily think she would have gotten in some of these neighboring districts. And it's just one small example. I know there's probably so many more, but one small example of what this small school has provided to her. And that both, for all three of my kids, it's been so important to be here. And I think sometimes with all of this discussion, that just has been being pushed to the side and it's kind of being forgotten about. That the kids can't always come here and highlight the great things that they're doing. But there's so many amazing things going on, and I think we've kind of been this little hidden gem. So just a family perspective, we would hate to see this school not be the school that it is. I mean, yes, can improvements be made, and are there changes that might be needed? Absolutely. But to hear some of the discussion about the education is not what it should be would be exactly the opposite of what all three of my children and my husband and I would say if we were asked to describe this district, this town, and this school.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Communications, and this is where we could discuss the informational meeting, meetings that were organized. For the record, these were organized between Jason Petritis and Stephen Duff, the superintendent of Quabog. He had emailed an invitation out to myself, Joe Trent Acosta, Sheila LeBlanc, obviously Jason Petritis and Michelle Petritis. And as far as I know, Michelle Petritis was on the regionalization committee, and I think that's ostensibly why she was involved. I never was given a direct reason for being included, but so basically it was a sales pitch from Stephen Duff, and if some of the people present here tonight were at the police station where he was present with Peter Durant and Mr. Berthew. There was another unopened meeting there, another informational session, and that was rather last minute, just like this meeting was. So they were, again, it was just basically a sales pitch from Stephen Duff, and he kind of did a little Q&A, and there were a lot of, again, so he's trying to sell his school to the people present. And one of the numbers he threw out was an estimate of $11,500 per student. And the idea being that, and it's still not clear from people that want to tuition out the school, and this is what, just people throwing out ideas with no clear, solid evidence or facts behind them. We're not even clear the intent would be the full 7 through 12 or just 9 through 12. But if it's 7 through 12, right now in this building we have grades 6 through 12. And that would involve reintegrating grade 6 back over into the elementary school. And that's a whole issue unto itself, just logistically. But on the ballpark number that he threw out of $11,500 per student for grades 7 through 12, right now there are 149 students. That would total about $1.725 million. That's just back of the napkin right now, because that number that he gave is an extreme lowball compared to their per pupil spending. And without knowing how many students they would actually get, how much money they're actually getting from the state, there's a lot of questions there. The projected salary expenses for grades 7 through 12, $1.727 million. It's $2,000 off from the potential cost of tuition. So the idea that you're going to close grades 7 through 12, eliminate those positions, doesn't make sense, because it costs basically the same amount as tuitioning out. Never mind any other additional costs. Another major thing that has not even been considered in this is the grant funding that we receive for the STEM programs that we have going on. Project 1.8 Project Lead the Way, we get funding from that based on the fact that we are a K through 12 district. When we are no longer a K through 12 district, we no longer receive those monies. I believe there's also an impact to Chapter 78 in that regard, because we would still technically, because the students would still be in our district, we would still be on the hook for net school spending, including those students. So there's a lot of financial considerations, and the idea that tuitioning out is going to somehow save the town money, right now, again, back of the napkin stuff, just looking at some of these ideas, it does not make sense.
Can I add something too, John? I didn't want to interrupt you. So when we had the informational session with Mr. Duff, he also said that they would look at what the transportation costs would be. And he gave us the sales pitch that they would maybe absorb the cost, they'd see how much the state would give them, that we don't know, that we wouldn't have to then bus these students out there. That would be then on us to bus them out. The other consideration that's not necessarily immediate but long-term is if we tuition these children out, how do we ever get them back? We don't. All the teachers are gone. How are we going to then hire enough teachers to all of a sudden get our children back here in the town where we can offer them their own town to graduate from? And the magnitude of what that would mean to people who are coming into town who, oh, we don't even have a high school here. And so how would that affect the overall real estate values? There are a lot of other things to consider, and one of the questions that I have that I don't know if maybe you know, Sheila, is do we owe on this building still?
This building will be paid off in May of next year.
So then we wouldn't have to owe the state for the 75% that they put in?
Correct.
Okay.
I just want to add, the first meeting, I had extended the invitation to the rest of the school committee, and Tanya was the only one that was able to make it, again, because of short notice. So Tanya was in for that meeting. And at the police station, I believe, Ralph was able to make it, and Dan, I don't know when you...
I came in late.
Yeah. And some other considerations, we have, I believe it's roughly $1.8 million for out-of-district placement for sped costs. And we would still be responsible for that. With the tuition agreement, we would be responsible for the transportation costs.
And Mr. Duff did say that when it came to the special ed needs of the kids who may be attending in Quabog, that he would take the cost for the para and then this SLP and the PTs maybe and that kind of thing. That's all just a sales pitch though. That's not written in a contract and him going, okay, now you want us to take the kids, this is how we have to work it. So this bargain that we think that we're getting by sending the kids out, I think that we need to, like John said, we need to look at the entire picture, and it's not just as simple as, oh yeah, the kids can go somewhere else. It's just not that simple.
And it's the timing is not ideal, and again, this is not a formal discussion. This is just based on the information that was presented by Mr. Duff, and looking at our own data, it doesn't wash for me right now. But again, it was just an informational session. He was making a sales pitch both times, and while he did answer some questions, there's still, like, he glossed over things, again, like the special ed. You can't guarantee that any of the special ed would be able to be districted to Quabog. And I would assume that, well, I mean, first of all, any decision about where those students are placed is between the parents and guardians and the team for that child's education as it stands. And to think that you can unplug a child from a successful special education out-of-district placement and plug them back into another district, I don't know, I know autistic kids.
That was suggested.
I know autistic kids there. I have kids in my family. I know some profoundly autistic children. And it is not an easy thing to change their regimen It's hard enough getting them to a routine that they enjoy and can acclimate to, and you're gonna say that you can unplug them from where they're acclimated and they're being successfully educated and plug them in somewhere else just because a town says so. That's not how it works. So that's a whole other consideration that's kind of like on the side. And again, no representation on the school committee. Any change in policy, curriculum, their own budget. And another budget consideration. Mr. Duff mentioned that this could be a 3-year contract. It would not be in Quabog's best interest to have a 3-year contract with us because costs go up every year. It's just the way things are. I don't think there's ever been a year where costs have gone down in education because salaries always go up, there's always cost of living, there's always inflation, there's gonna be a rise in the cost. And to think they're gonna lock us in at a price per student for 3 years would be doing themselves a disservice. So then, I would imagine it would be in their best interest to do a year-to-year contract. But where does that leave our students? Because you have to renegotiate every year for that. And then what if they decide it's not a beneficial thing? Then you're saying you close the school and, let all these teachers go, and all of a sudden these kids are in the wind, and we have to shop them around to another district. It's not palatable. It's not, again, that's my opinion right now. This is not an official thing.
No.
This is just looking at the information presented, and I think that's where I'm gonna leave it, because the talk has been talked, but no one's actually given it much thought. And I've given it thought, other people have given it thought, and I think sure. Right.
So the other thing to consider is the population in both schools. So if our population goes way up, or their population goes way up, who's to say they have the space for our kids anymore? And our kids are not gonna be first priority if their school classrooms are too big at this point. I forgot my other point. But there's just a lot of balls in the air and things to consider. And like John said, and I just think that it's really important that this be something that's thought out and not thrown with an hour notice that there's an informational session that we're invited to attend. And that's what happened one time. We had an hour notice.
Can I add a few things? Well, I was in that meeting with Mr. Duff at the police department. There were some things that I took away that I didn't quite get the same as you did. I'm looking at Quabog as a more bang for your buck opportunity for our kids, even if we don't save a penny. There's so many more opportunities at Quabog that we cannot offer here, between sports, drama club, 15 AP courses. They have career programs such as EMT and CNA and things like that that we can't offer.
We have plenty of stuff we're offering here that is different from what they're offering.
So then he said that if we just did 9 through 12, it would take 1 teacher for them to hire. That's what he said, based on class sizes that he expected it to be. Yep, we would still own the special ed, yep, and we, transportation is something to be worked out, yep, but anything is possible. There is an appetite here in this town for a change. That was proven by the fact that there was a regionalization committee a few years ago that people wanted to regionalize from North Brookfield. From everything I've heard, it wasn't North Brookfield that shot it down, it was Quabog. The tuitioning idea is to get us on track so we can work things out and then become regionalized, spearheaded by Mr. Duff. He said that he would spearhead that. He wanted us to be part of the district. Their population has dropped as well as ours. It's not rising. They have no people moving into Warren. I don't know about West Brookfield. Special ed is run by the state. They have the exact same special ed programs that we do. I think that it is I taught at Quabog. I can speak very highly for Quabog High School and junior high school. The student-teacher ratio is good, is very good. They have excellent education there with great college opportunities combined with the other career path opportunities is a win for our students. I'm not concerned about the money as much as I am about providing for the students. I think that the idea of working towards regionalization is a good idea, and I would support tuitioning.
Can I add something, John?
So we're talking money and all this other stuff. There's also the procedural part of this whole process where DESE needs to be involved. There are steps you take to close a school. I've been looking into that. I feel like we haven't had a lot of conversations about it because it's kind of been a haphazard approach to it. But I feel everyone at this table has been doing, a series of tables, has been doing research into different aspects of this. I've been focusing on just what is involved in closing a school. And I believe we talked already that it's just, it can't happen this year. There are steps involved. At this point, we've had 2 informational sessions. There's nothing in writing for us to even look at. We don't have any sort of documentation or anything that we can compare notes to, put numbers towards, all that stuff. We have 2 informational sessions. We also haven't had the step, which even though it's a school committee vote, I think we owe it to the town to have a public informational session where the townspeople can come and ask their questions and find out what they want to know. Because again, we're a small sample of a town of thousands of people. And at this point, so in summary, I guess, there's steps that we need to take, which legally we have to do, and we need to analyze them and make sure we do them properly in conformance with what DESE wants us to do to close the school down. I'm not saying I'm opposed to it. I'm saying that we need all the information in front of us so that we can analyze that and then present it to the town prior to making any sort of decision like that. It's not that the conversation's not being had. It's that we're trying to fill in all the blanks from an informational session, and then we can talk about it more realistically and really analyze what the impact would be on the students and the town as a whole.
I agree that there are steps to be taken. This is the first step, an informational discussion amongst the school committee. That's step 1.
We haven't had an informational discussion amongst the school committee rep.
This is it.
No, because
This is not informational session?
We do not
Just
have
a
all the
discussion.
information to
Just a
discuss it.
we don't have all the
That's my point.
information.
Like what? I'm sorry. What more do we need? Besides,
I need
the stuff
numbers,
is-
Ralph.
we need numbers?
There are a lot of things.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
stuff involved in this.
I don't
So
know
I'm
how many
gonna
times-
suggest we meet more frequently than once a month, because this is important. This is very important, and affects the whole town, not just,
Are you suggesting this year, or this next school year?
well, why not?
It's not.
Go for it.
The major reason why Mr. Petraeus suggested it was because he wanted a cut in the cost because he couldn't afford what what the superintendent was asking for the money for the budget. So to suggest that we can spend more money when we're already being told by the FinCom and the Board of Selectmen that there's not enough money already, it seems, I don't know how we could go further from there.
I don't know where you come up with more money.
You just said that.
You said you
For more
didn't
bang
care
for
if
your buck.
it cost more money, you'd be open to it. So,
I guess I didn't mean it that way. I meant if it's a wash, then we provide the more opportunities for the students.
all right. I don't know if there's anything else to add from that. Let's see. Yeah, so it was basically a sales pitch. He gave his spiel, and again, it was all broad promises and nothing solid. And I've heard plenty of sales pitches. So that was the informational sessions. Moving on, student representative report.
For our past information, I have the senior versus faculty basketball game. On Friday, March 21st, the senior class hosted the annual senior versus faculty basketball game. Lip Sync / April Spirit Week. The week before April vacation, April 14th through the 17th, was our Spring Spirit Week. We had different themes for each day, and on Thursday we had our classes 6 through 12 compete in a class versus class competition, lip sync competition, and the 5th graders were also here to watch. Our conferences and field trips. Our spring conference was April 16th at Oakmont Regional High School. Upcoming information, executive board elections. We will be holding executive board elections on Monday, May 5th to elect our new board for the 2025-2026 school year. Teacher Appreciation Week. Our annual Teacher Appreciation Week will be held from May 5th to the 9th. Each day we will be giving gifts for teachers, and at the end of the week, we will hold a Teacher Appreciation Breakfast for all staff, along with giving the staff their superlatives for the year. Junior Conference / Shadow Days. Sometime in late May, we will be holding our Junior Conference event. Along with Junior Conference, we will be working with admin to schedule and organize Shadow Days. Class Day Field Day. Class Day Field Day will be held on Friday, May 30th. Students will start the day in classes and transition to the elementary school for the Class Day ceremony, then head into Field Day. Class elections. Class elections will be held in late May for rising 7th through 12th graders, and rising 6th graders will have their elections in the fall. Lock-in. Lock-in is going to be held on Friday, June 6th into Saturday, June 7th. This is an event for student council members only, where we stay over at the school and get locked in. We participate in workshops and run team building activities throughout the night. Then we get to have free time. Our social medias, we invite all community members to follow our social media accounts to keep up with all NBHS student council activities and events. Our accounts are Instagram at NBStuco and Facebook at NBStuco. Student council meetings. All meetings are open to the school and community. Meetings are typically every other Monday in the high school Kiva. Please feel free to join us if you have anything you would like to discuss or would just like to see how things are run. Not to call back to anything past, but I'd like to give you all a student perspective on this matter. For any of you who don't know, I'm Dante Jean Grande. I'm an 8th grader here at North Brookfield. I play 2 sports, field hockey in the fall and basketball in the winter. I am on our student council's executive board, that's why I'm here today. And I'm also the class of 2029 president. I've been in North Brookfield since I was in 1st grade, and the transition from 6th to 7th grade to this building in other districts can definitely seem scary. But I knew what I was walking into, and I felt that this building was accepting my entire class with open arms. Through the past 2 years that I've been here, this school has become my family, and I feel that I would be lost in a larger district somewhere else, and I would not have any of the opportunities that I have here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dante.
Thanks, Dante.
Glad to hear your recommendation for the school. I heard good things about the lip sync. People had a lot of fun with that one.
Yeah, we did.
Just had the faculty won the basketball game, that's what I heard.
A call back on that?
Any other questions or comments for Dante? Thank you very much. Moving on. No school committee reports. Financial reports, I guess that's moot. So, on to the superintendent's report.
So the first thing that I want to just highlight, and Mr. Dura is going to do most of this is speaking on this, is every year we present next year's program of studies. So this evening, he is going to go over the revisions and the updates for the 2025-26 program of studies. Mr. Diorio?
So I shared with the committee some of the changes we made. If you have access to our program of studies now, there's it's about 5 changes we made, and I highlighted them by the page numbers. Page 7, we're going to change the wording because, as you know, this year MCAS is no longer a requirement to pass for graduation. So we have to determine our competency determination. So if you look on page 7, we just made a change to that will be determined by the school committee later this year. We also made a change on page 7, the community service. It was 30 hours, we changed it to 40 hours for grades 9 through 12. And that way it would be 10 hours per year for our students. On page 11, we changed our summer school classes to a maximum of 2 summer school recovery classes, or at the principal's discretion. One of the reasons for that change was we had an issue come up where students were failing classes because they knew they could just make them up in summer school. And so they didn't put the effort into the classes because the idea was, well, we'll just retake it again in summer school when it's a lot easier to pass. So we put a max of 2. However, we can meet, and if we need to do more, we could. We left that open. On page 19, we added 2 new math electives. There's a stats and a quantitative reasoning. Those are both before our seniors. Page 27, to the science, forensics, and brain and behavior. We've had those classes. We just put a description in there, or a more detailed description for those. So it's not a change per se, it's just more of a detailed description. And then finally on page 35, we added our engineering and technology program, and we also added the classes for advanced manufacturing pathways, one of several pathways that we offer at our school for our students.
I will say statistics is one of my favorite math classes that I ever had. I didn't get it till college, but statistics, I loved it.
Oh, yeah.
It was great.
You got logical minds, the best one, right?
Well, it's also one of those classes where you can see where it relates to the real world.
So fast.
I mean, everything's statistics. It's, it got me out of the funk of asking the teacher why I was learning that.
Yeah. There's some more, and just to build on that, Mr. Canada, there's some more real-world applications there for stats, as you mentioned, and the quantitative reasoning. That's part of the reason why we added those 2 classes to our electives as well.
How long are those classes for?
I'm sorry.
How long are those classes, a term or?
Yeah, semester.
Semester.
I was reading that there's 130 credits in order to graduate, but I counted 120. Is there credits given for the volunteer time?
Yes, work study credits, they get electives or extra credits and things like that, yes.
Okay.
The students can earn up to 10. This is not a change, but just for the committee's information, they can earn up to 10 credits for work study as well.
Okay.
That was the availability of volunteer opportunities.
You didn't see I'm sorry, Mr. Campbell.
How's the availability of volunteer opportunities?
Lots and lots of opportunities, not only in the community, but also with Mr. Murphy, the elementary school, and many opportunities here in our school as well. For instance, in our school, any of the after-school events that we have are opportunities. We do a lot of work with the stocking the shelves for the pantry and things like that. Going down to work with the elementary students as well. So you don't necessarily have to go off campus to earn those hours. We were mindful of those barriers. Some students don't have transportation and things like that, so they can easily get all their hours right here in district if they need to.
I see some members of the crowd tonight that I know have needs for volunteers to do
Yes.
things like trail clearing and maintenance stuff around some of the.
Yeah, I mean, reach
the
out, let
parks
me
and
know, or
things,
Miss Earhart
so.
know, and Miss Malone as well too, with student council, definitely anyone, let me know. Yeah.
Get them out there running a brush hog.
No, I need someone to dig the holes for me.
Do after-hours club activities count toward those credits, or is that?
No, not if they're in clubs, that wouldn't count as hours,
So for nonprofit, basically.
yes.
So are all courses semester long?
No. Some are year-long, some are semester-long.
Okay, so my question is about math. It's one question. Are those a semester-long classes, the math classes?
Some are, for example, algebra, geometry, those would be year-long classes. Calculus,
How long is a class? 45 minutes, an hour?
53.
53, okay. So can a kid take a semester of Algebra 1 and a semester of Geometry in the same year?
they would have to take a year, but they could.
Oh, those a year?
Yes.
Those a year.
But to answer your question, they could,
Algebra 2 is semester or,
year-long.
yeah, that's year-long. So all math courses are
The
year-long?
major ones, Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, and Calculus, am I
It's
forgetting?
pre-calc.
Pre-calc, I'm sorry.
Which is basically trig, right?
Close, yes.
So there's no track for somebody to get to like calculus, right? There's no track for calculus.
No, I'm doing this.
There's no, there's no track for calculus,
There is not.
for any
correct,
calculus
correct.
course. Because there is one here, CP calculus and honors calculus, but there's no way to get there.
They're not being offered, correct,
Right.
this year, or next year.
And because we didn't have enough kids that wanted to sign up for those, or?
Correct.
What do you think?
Right.
I believe I'll just be put in a base math class. I'm only a freshman next year.
Oh, so algebra 1.
Yeah, probably.
Any other questions for Mr. Fiorio? Thank you very much.
There's a voting item.
Sorry, that is a voting item. Missed the asterisk. Right. Sorry, I skipped that. Can I have a motion to approve the 25-26 North Brookfield High School Program of Studies?
So moved.
Second.
We did our discussion, I
So,
guess.
yeah, I guess,
Discussion.
before we move on, any other comments, questions about the program
I do.
studies?
The only foreign language is French, right? There's no Spanish or whatever else? That's it? French. We don't have the interest, or don't have a teacher, or which?
Correct. We only have a French teacher this year.
All right, all in favor of approving the program of studies for 25-26? Aye. Thank you very much. Applied Learning Conference.
All right, I'm going to just give some broad strokes on this event that we attended. We've mentioned this in previous meetings. We went out to Denver, Colorado, April 3rd through 5th through a grant to the 1-8 Foundation. 1-8 has funded North Brookfield's public schools with both our Project Lead the Way initiative at the elementary and the middle school level, and we'll be supporting our rollout for next year as well. But another offshoot of the 1-8 is their Applied Learning Grant, the Applied Learning Concepts, which myself, Mr. Diorio, Ms. Malone, had the privilege of attending a workshop back in January in Boston for the day. and then they flew us out to Denver for 3 days. And I wanted to allow Caitlin and Mr. Gerio to kind of talk about what we saw, how it's in line with our Open SciEd program that Caitlin has rolled out this year for our middle school students, and also what we've been doing as a district for both schools with our Universal Design for Learning, which has been an initiative with the Novak consulting firm, which happened this year in hopes of bolstering our instruction for all students, for all teachers, which will carry over to next year as well. So I don't know if, John, you want to kind of set it up. We did have the privilege of seeing 3 different schools. I'll just name those off real quickly. We went to see the CEC Early College School in Denver Public Schools. We also went to what was called the Stead School, which is in Commerce City, which is outside of Denver. And then we also went to the William Smith High School, which is in Aurora. So we saw 3 very different, distinct high schools. The Stead School has only been around for 4 years, so their first graduating class is this year. Whereas CEC and William Smith have kind of rebranded themselves over the years. William Smith used to be an alternative high school. Now it's more of a comprehensive high school where they've infused a lot of Chapter 74 funding into that school. And then the CEC is kind of a mix of both. A lot of great things going on at both. We had the privilege of meeting with several students, multiple teachers, and their administrators to talk about how they've been successful with these applied learning concepts. So, I don't know if, John, you want to start, and then we'll turn up to Caitlin?
Sure. I want to say Ms. Miller and I both talked to the staff today about this, and I think the staff was as excited as we were when we shared some of this with the staff. But the big takeaway, as Mr. McCormick said, it aligns very nicely to the UDL program that we've been doing. We don't want to start something new again, and this just goes right along with what we've been doing. But the main takeaways when we talk about applied learning is it's a lot of project-based things. It's a lot of real-world applications. The classes we saw, very diverse classes, the urban schools, but the engagement, not only from the students, but the teachers as well. To see that excitement from the teachers in the class was truly amazing. But we did share, we created a PowerPoint presentation for you real quick, and we won't go through word by word, but essentially we wanted to let you know what is applied learning. And as you can see, behind the school committee, it has to do with teachers and students engaging in real-world collaboration and iteration, where they can work on complex problems and the key here is they're meaningful to the students. And so what Ms. Malone and I sat by each other on the buses going to different schools, and we just couldn't stop talking about the things we saw. But I think we all know when it's relevant to you, you're going to be engaged in it, you're going to want to participate in it. It was funny, one of the schools we visited, we talked about cell phones. They didn't really have a cell phone policy because they didn't need one, because the kids were engaged in what they were doing, and they really didn't feel the need to pull out their cell phones. But to see the projects they were doing, we went into a co-taught classroom with special ed and regular education students. You couldn't tell the difference. It was a trigonometry class, as a matter of fact. We were just amazed at the way the kids worked together and the things they were doing. If you go to the next slide, Ms. McCormick. And I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Malone in a second. But these are 5 of the key concepts: meaningful problems, knowledge and skills that adults use. You know, our job in high school is to get our kids ready for college and or career or both. And that's what we want to do at North Brookfield High School, is to make sure when our kids leave our school that they're going to be rock stars no matter what they do. And this is important for us. Collaboration and communication was huge, to see the students working together. The teachers act more as a facilitator than the actual directed lesson. Was really incredible. And then a lot of work partnered with the professionals from outside in the community. You know, how can we create projects that are actually meaningful to the community that we're in? If you go to the next slide, Mr. McCormick. And then one more after this. And one more after this, sorry. And these are the 5 tenets of the applied learning concepts. And I just want to add, we're also applying for part 2 of this grant, which will increase the things we've been doing year 1. So we're really excited about next year. We have a really good relationship with the 1-8 Foundation, very supportive of our school and the things we're doing. And they've been very encouraging to us to make sure we continue this work. But Ms. Malone, I'm going to let you talk a little bit about those 5 tenants and what you saw.
Yeah, so my name is Kayla Malone. I'm the middle school science teacher here at North Brookfield Junior Senior High School. I'm also, I live at 42 Donovan Road, so I'm a part of this community as well, grew up here. Going out to Denver and being able to see the different aspects that Boston and Boston also brought into their classrooms, into their learning, really allowed me to bring a lot of things back to my classroom, where I'm implementing Open SciEd this first year. So we are in our 2nd unit. We did contact forces in the fall, and now we're doing McKenna. So if you have students who are talking about digestive systems and why things are happening, to McKenna, that's me. But they, what I love about these 5 tenants and that what I was really able to bring back is that I see firsthand what implementing each one of these tenants can do within a classroom for students. I'm having some of the most engaging conversations that I've had in a really long time, and they're thinking like scientists, right? This is like how science is supposed to be. We talk all the time in class about how you're gonna make more mistakes, then you're gonna be right. And that definitely goes to one of the tenets, right? Iteration and persistence, but there's also tons of collaboration. They have to talk to one another. That's like, it's unacceptable not to in my class. And they have to share ideas, whether they think they're right or maybe their view is different from another. So really having those real world problems and having those engaging conversations has already really flipped a lot of the things that I'm seeing in my classroom. I don't get a lot of behavior issues in my class. I don't see a lot of phones because they're so busy doing what we want to do. Like everybody wants to figure out what's going on with McKenna. Every day I get somebody that comes in and says, is this the day we get to figure out what's wrong with her? And I'm like, no, like that's not how science works. We have to like take this one step at a time. So I don't even know what's going on with her, which is really cool. Part of this process is that teachers really become the facilitators, right? I'm not standing up, I'm not teaching out of a textbook, I haven't done that in years. And very little am I up at the front of the room. They're doing the conversations, they're having those aha moments with each other. So being able to go into other schools, whether it be in Denver or Boston, and then being able to take notes, right, on all of those tenets of what I see, what I don't, what I can bring back here. It's been really awesome to then have those conversations with some of my colleagues that they're just starting their applied learning kind of journey through some of the curriculum that we're bringing to North Brookfield. So it's super exciting, especially for the science department. We're like ready to go. We have a really good connection with the high school science team as well. So a lot of these skills, whether it's content-wise or those soft skills that you're going to need as an adult, they're already learning those 6th, 7th, 8th grade to get to high school.
Yeah, and just to build off of what Ms. Malone said, a lot of this work is cross-curricular, project-based, as we mentioned before. So, we all know students, times are different than when I was in school 100 years ago, but students need to leave us and be able to work together with other kids, other people to be successful. And one of the big things I hear from when I talk to colleges is kids come to us, they don't know how to think critically. They can't take information and put their own thought to it. And so this is a big part of what we're doing. And before I forget, there's one more teacher in the back next to Mr. Rigney. Mr. McNeil is also part of our project Lead the Way, who also is part of this work as well. He's been doing this. I don't know if you wanted to mention a little bit about some of the work you've been doing, Mr. McNeil.
Sure.
He was, and just real quick, he was the rocket man that launched, if you were here for our STEAM night, he had the rocket launches, so he does a great job with that. Mr. McNeil, you can just talk.
Yeah, good evening, John McNeil, the district STEM teacher for North Brookfield. Some of what we're doing with the project Lead the Way is very much a hands-on program designed for students to be able to engage with real-world problems in a way that's going to prepare them for either college or trade readiness straight out of high school. One of the things that we're doing with our advanced manufacturing program that we're going to be kicking off next year is enabling students to take either career or trade skills and be pretty much plugged into a job post high school right away. So this is a really awesome career opportunity for our students to be able to have with a national network of PLTW schools across the nation. This year they were hosting the New Balance track in Boston, a kind of STEM fair where students were able to show off and showcase their projects that we're doing. And that's something that I'll be looking forward to do next year with our batch of freshman students and everything doing the PLTW program there. We'll be able to go to other opportunities and events, kind of get that national spotlight even here at North Brookfield.
Just want to add real quick to kind of close, unless you have anything else to say, Mr. Mario, Ms. Malone. Thank you, Mr. Gill. I was going to put you on the spot as well. But, you know, we're going slow to go fast. So the students and the teachers we saw out in Denver and in Boston are our kids, our teachers. They started someplace at one point, they got this training, they adopted these ideas, they've now put them into action. And that's what we're trying to do here. But the kids, you know, we saw this in full shape, if you will, in our science classes, but also in English class, in math class. So it's not just for tech and engineering or STEM, or not just for Open Sci-Ed. This is a cross-curricular. This is for any class. And you know, we're going to focus in year one, we've been focusing on our STEM classes and our Open Sci-Ed. But the goal is to allow this to grow so that we see examples of applied learning in every single classroom that are in these buildings. So that is the short and long-term goal. But I want to applaud both of you. You guys are both Singleton teachers. You're doing a lot of heavy lifting this year, both with training and implementation. And I know that you know, we're already seeing some rewards with our kids. So thank you very much.
Can I add a comment if we're done? I don't want people to think I'm nothing but negative, but because this is a really good program. I participated in something like this when I was teaching. Math, and cross-curricular projects are very helpful. Hands-on projects are very helpful, and you can gear your project, well, we don't have MCAS anymore, but I would gear the projects to MCAS, and it really did help. I participated in a program presented by WPI, so if that still exists, then I suggest that you look at them, and they'll even come out and give you some ideas and suggestions. We had a panel of college admissions and deans that came and spoke to the class that I was in, and they spoke to what they saw for students coming in. This is colleges from the area, from Mount Wachusett Community College to Quincy to WPI, Worcester State, Nichols, Anna Maria, they all came. And what they saw for our students across the board, not particular schools, was that kids work well together, which is what you're teaching. They are good at working collaboratively. However, the one drawback is lack of persistence. So if you can find a way to bring that in, because they're relying on a group, well, this is my part, but I'm having a little trouble with it, and they pass it on. It's just, I'm not saying everybody does that, but I'm just saying that is one of the drawbacks to that. I'm all for hands-on. I did a lot of that. I learned that when I was at Bay Path. Those students were hands-on learners. That's why they were at Bay Path. So we had the same MCAS requirements as everybody else. So the way I got to them was by using projects that they could relate to. And cross-curricular is awesome. If you can relate history and math or English and science or however, it's really good. I have just two questions, if I might ask. The schools you visited, were they private schools or public schools?
They're a combination of both.
Combination of both.
Yeah.
Does Colorado have something like our MCAS? They do?
They do, yes.
Okay. And how did they do you know?
Yeah,
Go ahead, John.
they did quite well.
Yeah.
We didn't get the actual data from it, but talking to the school leaders, they did great. Just as good, if not better, than a traditional school, if you will.
Okay.
The other thing, Mr. Cavan, your suggestion with WPI is right on. We've actually, our curriculum coach and Mr. McNeil have been working with WPI.
Oh, good.
So I appreciate you saying that, because
And they're
I
local.
agree with you, they're a great resource for us too. They've been a big help. And the persistence thing, that is also one of the things, and I wish I would have put it in the presentation, I'll share it with you. One of the teachers we visited, I took a picture of it, she, and I can't remember the exact name, what she called it, you would probably know if I said it, but she had a way to track the students, because in group work, as you said, and my daughter complains, she's at WPI and complains about this all the time. One student does most of the work, so she had a way, she had a system, and the kids would write down, what are you working on, and if you remember more, Ms. Malone, but
I think it was the Kanban method. It's like a
Kanban.
Kanban
Kanban,
method, which is
yeah.
what they use out in the real world, right, in the, that system, so.
But they track, so what are you working on for all the kids? And it was a way to keep each kid accountable. What are you working on? What have you completed? What do you still have to finish, and what are you struggling on? And each student in the group would fill that out, and they would move along that chart. And then she would have check-ins with the students along the way to make sure that one student wasn't carrying the load, because
It's a lot of administrative work for a teacher, but another method would be peer evaluation, including that as part of the grade, not
Yes.
the entire grade, but, so.
Thank you, everyone. I just want to add that the field day thing, going out to New Balance track, just reminded me, back when I was in high school, we did a thing, we built solar powered cars, and we had a big competition. It wasn't the Ecotarium back then, it was the Worcester Science Center, whatever it was called. And we did it out in the parking lot up there, and that was a lot of fun. It was just that kind of, that team effort, collaborative, and put in the competition aspect that kind of drives kids. Good time. But, yeah, I'm glad we have those programs running.
I got a question for Mr. Camille. You're part of the robotics program?
Yes, so the current elective for this year is the robotics, intro to mechanics, and intro to rocketry. Kind of hit the broad spectrum of interests for our student population, but yes.
Now, are you going to do, I heard a rumor, maybe putting AI to the robotics, or?
So currently my students are working on programming a Raspberry Pi module with its own text-to-speech and speech-to-text processor in it. So that way then it can actually have a conversation with you. We actually, on the STEAM night, we demoed kind of like a demo version of it where students and parents were able to come in and talk to the robot. Didn't function 100% perfect every single time, but they are working on coding and programming the AI into it.
Anyone else? Thank you, everyone. Theater Guild curtain donation.
Yeah, so the Theater Guild reached out to me a little over a month ago they want to donate a new curtain to the auditorium for the elementary school. So this does need school committee approval.
I move to accept the new curtain donation.
I second the motion.
Do you have any idea what the dollar cost of this is, or?
It was over $2,000.
Fantastic. Is there, do they still do like fire safe curtains? Is that still a thing, or?
Yeah, there's some flammability issue there with it, so it's safe, but yeah, I don't know the specs, if that's what you're asking about.
Any other questions or comments?
I'd like to thank the Theater Guild for that offer.
Fantastic donation.
I believe they just finished Cabaret this weekend. Yeah. I saw a lot of cars in the parking lot. I did not make it myself, but we drove by and I said, "Oh, a lot of cars there." I think it was a full house.
Great. All in favor of accepting the Theater Guild curtain donation?
Aye.
Aye.
Before we move to the budget, can I ask something else about the superintendent's report before we start on that?
Sure. Yep.
So on this, your report, it says that we have someone who has been hired and someone who's left.
Correct.
And so we have an interim director of student services. So 1 year ago, this month, we had a new director of student services, and I reminded you of the Mass General Law, number 71B, Chapter 71B, 3A, that the school committee shall appoint a person to be its administrator of special education. Here we are again. I asked you when we negotiated your contract that we try to follow Mass General Law. And here we are again, where you hired a director of student services and didn't come to us. There was no email to the general school population because I'm on that email list. And we were never told about her hiring until this meeting.
I'm not sure if that's totally accurate. I don't know the exact timeline. I did share the hire with the school, with the chair. This person has been hired as a part-time person on an hourly basis. So this is not a full-time position. The full-time position, we are interviewing for that position starting this Thursday, which that person will be brought to the school committee as a finalist candidate for next school year.
I don't see in the Mass General Law that it designates whether it's a part-time person. It's just the number of students in the district, whether it goes to the school committee or not.
Well, I don't know what else to say about that. I did, as I do with these types of scenarios, I did run this by council, and he said this is totally appropriate in this scenario, based on the fact that she is part-time. And I wanted to expedite this hire. We found somebody who recently retired back in October, so is fresh out of this work coming from Webster Public Schools. So she is essentially on our team right now to keep us moving towards the end of the school year. And like I said, we have first round of interviews this Thursday, and we're hoping to expedite that process so we can have a finalist for the May school committee meeting.
So you told us that she, right now, you told us that she used to be director or director of student services or special ed director. What other qualifications can you share with us about her? And what was her name again? I'm sorry, I hate to use her.
Kathy Barris.
Thank you.
Kathy was the PPS director at Webster Public Schools for over 12 years.
Are you saying Westboro?
Webster.
Oh, Webster.
Webster, sorry. And prior to that, I don't have a resume in front of me, she was at, I believe, I want to say either Sutton or another local district, but the last 12 years have been at Webster Public Schools.
And when you say part-time, what does that mean?
She's in essentially twice a week, 2 8-hour days a week.
Did I miss the email to the school district about this?
I don't know if you missed it or not. I sent an email to our staff. We had a welcome for her last Friday? Thursday?
So I have 2 children on IEPs. I didn't hear anything about, I happened to meet her when I came into the office. That was the only reason why I've ever met her. I haven't, you don't think that it's important to tell the?
No, I thought that it was sent out to the entire district. I know I sent it out to the staff. We had a meet and greet. I'll have to look back and see who I exactly sent it out to.
It's important for people who have children on IEPs or that need services to know who they have to contact in case they need information or help or. Okay.
All right, fiscal year 26, North Brookfield Public School budget updates.
Okay. So in your packets, you received a presentation with an additional memo that will go through all these documents throughout this presentation. I believe the initial presentation was back in January, if I'm correct. Just want to get my timeline accurate. So the initial FY26 operating budget was presented in January. Since then, we've had multiple conversations around the budget, both internally and now again externally. So tonight, I'm going to talk to you kind of where we're at, look at big picture, and then look at some options that the district may have moving forward. So I want to start with, and I'm not going to read this verbatim, we can all see this on the screen, you can all read along. But this is the mission statement that we adopted. I referenced this before. We adopted this last fall when we went through our strategic planning initiative with the district. And we had over 30 stakeholders who were part of this process, teachers, students, parents, administrators, members of the community who adopted these pieces of this document, so mission statement, vision statement, and our core values. The one thing I want to highlight, which I believe the third line down, and this is really important, this will be a theme throughout this presentation. We are committed to continuous improvement, innovation, and the celebration of diversity, but we are committed to continuous improvement and innovation. I think I want to really stress that throughout this presentation, that the budget that we put forward back in January, which essentially was a level service budget with the addition of 2 positions, was a level service budget. So I want to talk about that as we go through this. So some of our guiding principles throughout this process, we want to, through our leadership team, through the school committee, ensure that the budget process is transparent, straightforward. We want to make sure we articulate the needs of our students, and we make this accessible to all of our stakeholders. This process, like I mentioned, started well before January, and since January we've had many conversations about what are our next steps. If we need to cut, and how much we need to cut, and what do those cuts look like for our district, and more importantly for our students and our families. And then we're always aware of resource management. One of the things that I want to just highlight is that over the last couple of years when we built this budget, when we talk about our out-of-district placements, which for FY26 is roughly $1.8 million, there's no padding in that part of the budget. And I've heard pros and cons to that kind of train of thought. We want to be straightforward with what we need and why we need it. But in this scenario, if we have a student or a family move into the district that needs those out-of-district placements, it does make it very challenging for the district to accommodate that student financially. So I just want to make that very, very transparent. Our objectives, which we adopted again last fall, these 3 overarching themes have been consistent. Curriculum and instruction enhancement, meeting the needs of all students, and fostering a culture of belonging. And these are pretty much, in my mind, very interchangeable. They kind of weave together. But at the core of what we do on a daily basis, as Caitlin's talked about, as John's talked about, is that curriculum and instruction for all of our students. We want to make sure that we are offering the best instruction possible, that we're engaging our kids, and that we're giving our students opportunities for success after high school, both in college and career, or both. So those are the things that we constantly talk about. We went through an exercise last month as a leadership team where we looked at the specific indicators of this plan. We looked at what we've accomplished so far and what we're still working on. And that's a very impactful process to really keep us on target as well. But again, all 3 of these objectives really talk about that piece of continuous improvement. We need to look at how we can get better every single day. So the goals for tonight, and they've changed slightly, but present potential revisions to the FY26 recommended budget, and then receive feedback and guidance from the school committee on next steps. The school committee will need to give me guidance or give the district guidance on where this budget goes from here. Do we move forward as is? Do we move forward with some of these cuts or all of these cuts? But this is the kind of the crux of what's going on at this point. So this is a familiar slide. I made some changes to this from where we started. For FY25, we started this, so at the beginning of the school year started with $7.028 million. The recommended budget for FY26 is $8.024 million. That has been revised since our last conversation around this. We went through and we found some mistakes that we had to rectify with the budget. But we're looking at an increase of $995,000 from FY25 to FY26, which represents slightly over a 14% increase in the total budget. Just one little side note, at the very bottom, as you see that bolded, salaries account for 70.1%. So 70% of the FY26 budget is our salaries. So transportation, as I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, so we're talking tonight about a level service budget. So transportation is one thing that we really have no control over as far as what we pay. We have a contract, for example, with AA Transportation. Over the course of those 5 years, we have a 6% increase right at the top. So with that being said, from FY25 to FY26, with no additional services, we're looking at nearly $110,000 increase for transportation. If you want to look at this more at a personnel level, this would equate to roughly 2 teachers. Salaries, and I want to just highlight a couple things here that we are recently just finished up our teacher negotiations. I want to thank both Mr. Cannon and Mr. Gario, and also Mr. Rigney and the teachers union for their part in this process. I think it was a very productive process, and I think that as you've heard some of the horror stories over the last 6 months to a year about negotiations, we didn't see any of that. We were able to come to the table on both sides and have productive conversations around what our teachers need, what the district needs, and more importantly, what our students need to be successful. But looking at where we are for salaries, and this encompasses all salaries, so teachers, support staff, custodians, administration, we're looking at a $268,000 increase. And this increase represents no new positions. In my initial presentation back in January, I had added on 2 positions, which equated to roughly $100,000. That was a sub-separate classroom teacher and 1 ABA. This version has no new personnel. All right, so I want to talk about, and I've talked about this a little bit, or we mentioned this at FinCom back in March, kind of how this budget works, where the money comes from and how much. And I know we all, if you've worked in a school or you've been privy to this information in years past, you probably have opinions about how the state funds education, how the towns are growingly on the hook for more money for schools, and you're probably all right. But the simple truth of it is, it's a formula that, whether it's good or bad or indifferent, there's 2 major components to this formula. So we have Chapter 70 funding that comes from the state, and we also have the required district contribution that comes from the town of North Brookfield. So if you look at this graph, you see the comparison of FY25 to FY26. So in FY25, we were looking at a roughly $4.96 million contribution from the state of Massachusetts. In FY26, where the budget currently sits, and what that means is the governor has presented her budget, the House has presented their version of the budget, next it goes to the Senate, it goes back to the governor's desk. So their part of the budget, their presentation of the budget, has a slight increase to Chapter 70. So it's roughly $41,000 increase. The required district contribution, and this is where it gets frustrating and tricky, is that in FY25, the required district contribution at the minimum was $3.5 million. FY26 is projecting at a 3.734 contribution, which is $211,000 more from FY25 to FY26. And as you can see, our overall enrollment has gone down. It has gone down in the last several years. So this is on top of, or in place of, or in addition to the fact that our enrollment has gone down. The other thing I didn't highlight on this particular slide, but as we looked at Chapter 70 funding over the last 8 to 10 years, it has dramatically gone down. Where it started in the mid-60s, it's gone down to, like I said, it's just over 60%. So the towns are more and more on the hook to offset that initial cost. So what we're going to talk about tonight too is as we go through some of the projected cuts with this budget. And I say projected because these are cuts that, as we've heard from members of this audience, that these are cuts that nobody wants to make. These are cuts that would tremendously harm our students and our families. These are cuts that maybe in the short term would help us financially in some aspects, but would hurt us in the long term with how we can retain students and offer the programs that our students deserve and need. So state aid and local contribution, to kind of highlight the previous slide. So the Department of Education will provide $41,000 in additional state aid in FY 2026. However, the department has set the required increase to meet net school spending minimum requirements by $211,000. So what that is essentially saying is the mandatory increase to and Chapter 70 aid will not cover the increase in salaries and transportation for FY 2026. This slide is really important. I think I want to take a little time on this slide because if it's not something that you're familiar with, I think we need to talk about this. But this shows the net school spending trend for both the state and the town of North Brookfield. Now, you see these arbitrary numbers, 14, so FY 2020, you see 14.4% for North Brookfield. That's over the minimum of 100%. The state average for 2020 was 25.4%, so 125.4%. So most districts spent at least that, or offset the school district in their financial mechanism, if you will, with at least 125,000 over net, 25.4% over minimum net school spending. This chart shows from FY 20 to FY 26. Now we had 1 year in FY 21 where we jumped up to 21.3% over the 100%. Most years were hovering around 12 to 13% over that 100% minimum requirement. What we're talking about for FY 26 to make this budget work would be dropping the contribution of the town to roughly 104%, so 4% over the required amount of 100%. That is roughly roughly a 10% drop from FY 25 to FY 26. So currently North Brookfield is, out of roughly 300 districts in the state, we roughly come in around 210, 211 as far as funding overall. We have districts in the state that fund their districts at well over 200%. We have some that fund their schools at 100%. One perfect example is Worcester Public Schools. Now you may be thinking Worcester is nothing like North Brookfield, and in some ways it's not. But what Worcester has that North Brookfield does not have, if you look at their federal grants, they receive nearly $28 million in federal grants. So that the city of Worcester can afford not to fund their school district at 120% or 130% because they get so much in federal funding. North Brookfield, on the other hand, even with 114%, 112% in net school spending, only gets around $250,000. And those IDA funds and those special ed grants that we get on a yearly basis. So very big drop off, very big difference. There are districts that are much smaller than Worcester. For example, Sutton gets around $500,000 in those federal grants, but they also contribute about 120% to net school spending. So another part of our financial picture is circuit breaker reimbursement. So a couple things with the circuit breaker. This is the mechanism that the state uses to offset the cost of our out-of-district tuition and our out-of-district transportation. Those are two separate things. Tuition is reimbursed at 75%, and there's always, throughout the course of the year, that changes. We start at 70%, which we did for the first iteration of this budget. We've jumped that up because we have certainties that will be at 75%. But transportation is never funded at 75%. In fact, last year was funded at 54%. But what that means, though, it's not an even trade-off. So if we have a student that is out of district at the tune of $100,000, we don't just get a flat $75,000 for that student. We have to meet a threshold of $52,000 roughly, and then we get 75 cents on the dollar for the remaining funds thereafter. So what this graph is showing you, that back in 2019, the cost of placements to the district was roughly $9,000. That has jumped for the last couple of years. You're seeing a cost roughly to the district of over $230,000, $243,000 for FY25. So that even though we are getting more money from circuit breaker, more offsets, the direct cost of the district has increased. These are mandated costs, and I know that there's been conversation around placements and the expense of placements, and they are costly, but this is our moral and ethical responsibility to these students and these families. And this cost, unless we can keep kids in district, build programs to support these kids, is going to stay somewhat steady. We've seen a decrease in OSD over the last couple of years, where if you were on this committee a couple of years ago, the cost was a 14% increase. Now we're sitting just under a 4% increase for FY '26. So those inflation increases that have been attached to OSD or these services has gone down. It's more regulated, but 5-6 years ago, it was close to 2 or 3% every single year.
Excuse me, are those just special ed costs, is that what that is?
Out of district, yeah, special.
Just
What's the
special-
question?
Just special ed, not school choice, right?
Correct. That was just
Out of
special.
district,
That
just
circuit breaker
special ed.
is just for special education
Thank you.
students. So I wanted to share this slide because even though it's tough to look at, it just shows you kind of the reality of students choicing out and students choicing in. So the sending is the amount of money that we see leave the district as students choice out to other districts. The receiving is the amount of money that we see come in to the district for students who are coming into the district. We saw, our smallest difference, if you will, back in 2020, at just over $320,000. But we're seeing, a much larger number of students leave the district on a regular basis since 2020. And I think you see a big spike, right around 2022, where you see, I believe, that was the initial conversation, 21-22, when we talked about regionalization. And I know that, whether you were for or against that concept, we saw an increased number of students, especially at the high school level, who left our district in order to get their seat at either Quabog or Quabbin or another district. But the reality, too, is we're not seeing as many students choice into the district. That number has gone up and been consistent, and we're projecting a similar number for FY 2026, right around the $320,000 mark. But it's nowhere where it used to be, and it's nowhere where we want it to be. So we're looking, at a 5-year total, of $3.1 million that has left the district. This is another way of showing, this was not the original presentation, I added this slide, I'll just go back to it for a second, but going back to 2016 to 2024, you're seeing roughly a 90 person swing out. So one of the, we talked about this back in January, this has been consistent for the last couple of years, and even though the numbers have changed, these are your major budget drivers for most schools, really, but North Brookfield is definitely in that same boat. But we look at salaries. So salaries for FY '25 to FY '26, and we talked about this already. We are wrapping up a very successful negotiation with our teachers. We are still working on our custodians, but we're looking at a $268,000 increase from FY '25 to FY '26. That's a 5% increase. I think that could have been much higher, so I'm very happy with that number overall. Sped tuition, we see a slight decrease. We went down 60,000 roughly, and that's a 3.3% decrease or difference. And transportation, like I said, transportation is one of those things that even without adding additional buses or vans, we're looking at $110,000 increase from FY '25 to FY '26, which is an 11.6% increase over the course of that year. Again, this is just to articulate a breakdown of special education on district placements. And just to clarify, if you're looking at that and the math doesn't add up, back in FY '25, one of our students was in multiple placements over the course of the year, so that's why that math doesn't add up. But we're projecting, as of right now, so as of April 28th, we're projecting 13 students will be out of district placed, which is a $60,000 decrease or 3.34% decrease. But again, this is not accounting for any padding or buffer or I guess a safety net, if you will, if we have a student that needs to go out or moves into the district. All right, so as I mentioned, and we talked about if we are to look at going from 114% net school spending to 104, which is roughly that 10% drop that I talked about, this is the impact we're going to have on positions. I'm going to go through these individually, but I want to just kind of give you a chance to look at this all at once. These are not listed as priority areas. These are just listed just all-encompassing. But this total of positions is a savings of $476,000 in total. But more importantly, what is the impact on eliminating these positions? And I think this is what we need to really focus on here tonight and moving forward. And these are, in my opinion, right now, put in order of priority. So the impact of eliminating art and high school music. We are a small district. We all know that. There's nothing to, we can't sugarcoat that, we can't hide, we can't, fudge the numbers if you want. But for a lot of our students, the reason they come to school is art, is music, is athletics. Those are the things that draw kids into schools. We love to say that kids want to come in for STEM class, and a lot of them do. Open Science is a great program, but most kids, there's something else that draws those kids to school. When you cut the visual arts, when you cut music, and our pep band has become a big part of our school culture, you are creating a barrier for those kids. You're creating a barrier for those kids to be successful and to find their niche in our school. And I think that it cannot be overstated that music and the arts, athletics clubs, however you shake a stick at it, those are things that really go the extra mile with our students as far as their mental health, our social emotional learning component, a holistic child, if you will. Those are the things that keep kids happy, and those are the reasons why kids come to school. When you talk about the elimination of the classroom for art and music, you'd also the elimination of those clubs. The pep band would no longer be something that we could offer on a regular basis. We can no longer have our art showcases. This past month at our STEM night, Mr. Martinez, who's a big part of our future with our STEM programming, not only for the coding piece, but also for the SolidWorks initiation, he also showcased a lot of student art, which for a small school, for 400 students, for district-wide, we have some very talented students here in this building. You've seen some of the artwork, some of the murals downstairs. And again, I cannot stress enough, that is the reason why so many of our kids, really feel supported and seen here at this district. Next on the impact list is our elementary school media specialist, our .4 music teacher at the elementary school. We have a part-time media specialist and a part-time music teacher over the elementary school, and one phys ed teacher district-wide. If you've ever been in elementary school, you know how much our youngest students love going to the library. To look at books, to read books, to collaborate with each other, to have a story read to them. This is an integral part to learning, and I think it's foundational learning. Students learning how to read, how to comprehend, how to process things, what they read and what they see. And we want to expose our students at the youngest age to those advantages. Elimination, if we eliminate both the high school teacher and the elementary position, that will be a clear elimination of our music program. So where our elementary school students, it was a special that they got once weekly. At the high school, you could take classes both as a middle school student and a high school student. That would completely eliminate our music classes district-wide. And last but not least on this list is the increased PE class sizes. If we eliminate a full-time phys ed teacher, we have another phys ed teacher in the district who can take on some of those courses, who would also work district-wide. What that would mean too is that if a teacher had a spot in their schedule, which we have some, they would have to also take on either a phys ed or a wellness class. We will still offer phys ed and wellness. It's a graduation requirement. We'll have those courses, but classes will change, classes will become larger, and we won't be able to offer some of the programs we have now based on our student-to-teacher ratios. District instructional coach. And this is one that you may be thinking this is not a direct impact on students, but I would contest that even if it's not direct, it's a very strong indirect kind of movement on student success. We've had this position now for 3 school years. It initially started grant funded, but it's been the local budget for the past 2 years. And this year, our instructional coach has been foundational in supporting teachers through coaching cycles, as teachers have implemented new curriculum, as we continue to look at high quality instructional materials. This position has been beneficial and helpful guiding those teachers through this process. This person has also been instrumental with our UDL rollout district-wide. They worked diligently with both building principals and with teachers around how this looks in your classroom. And I go back to what I talked about in the first couple of slides. If we're committed to continuous improvement, losing this position would really slow us down. Our teachers who, and we have, I can think of almost a dozen teachers off the top of my head who have used this person on a regular basis to become better practitioners for their students. And we're starting to see those instructional shifts across the district. So this position, and this was the one kind of standalone that I added to this presentation, but I think it was worth saying. This position was initially in the first budget presentation. I have since taken these positions out. This is a sub-separate teacher in the ABA. They were dedicated to building a program for some of our youngest learners. We currently have 2 sub-separate classrooms in the district, one at the elementary school and one at the high school. This was in the hopes of building a third for some of our youngest learners, with ASD. This $100,000 for these 2 positions would do many things. One, it would keep our kids in district, and that's always our first priority, is keeping our kids in district so that their families are close by, that they are around their peers, that we are including them in inclusion classes as much as possible. But also financially, this helps us save money in both the short and the long term. So out-of-district placements can cost anywhere from $50,000 at the very low end to several $100,000. But on the average, you're looking at right around $100,000 per student. Building programs like this can keep kids in district, which the initial cost is in addition to the budget. So it's in addition to the level service budget. But I think it's very smart to keep those, to add those positions to keep those kids in district, but also the financial short and long term planning for the district going forward. If we cannot have these positions, there's always a plan B. We would have to utilize the teacher for that classroom to kind of oversee both programs. If we have the right candidate, which I think we will have the right candidate, we can make that work. However, on the flip side, that can be very taxing on a teacher, and we need to make sure that our support staff is very much in tune with what's going on in both classrooms. Next on that initial list was the reduction of one full-time ELA teacher. So what this would do is this would force the school or the high school to take on more of a humanities kind of situation for our middle school students. So that's a combination of English and history for our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, which we have the personnel and the skills to do that. But what it does is it eliminates some of the elective offerings that we could offer for our high school students. So creative writing, journalism, public speaking, to name a few. And again, every time you lose a staff member, every time you lose a trusted adult in your district, chances are you're not getting that position back. And to start shifting and reducing these positions that have been very beneficial to our kids, these are obstacles that we'll continue to have to deal with. But the impact of reduction will be something we can manage, but it will be great for our high school students to offer those elective courses. Also on this list is our English language learner teacher, who is currently at 1.0. One of the other impacts, or one of the other reductions, will be to move this position from a 1.0 to a 0.5 position. We have approximately 20 students, I think it's 17 or 18, that are qualified as English language learners in our district. That number may fluctuate a little bit, but chances are 5 years from now, that number's going to go up. And what this teacher has been able to do is support the learning for those students, both in their classes and within the pull-out classroom, but also work with teachers on how to better support these students. So minimizing this position, will impact what teachers do in their classroom for gen ed students, for regular ed students. They may need to dedicate more of their time supporting that L student, where if we had the full-time L teacher, they could be working in tandem to support those kids. So again, this is a reduction that may not be the first or the most greatest impact, but our L students, again, like all of our students, deserve as much support as possible, and this position is a big part of their success here at North Brookfield. And then also on this list, the impact of eliminating one paraprofessional position. Paraprofessionals and ABAs are instrumental in what we do on a daily basis. And eliminating one of these positions, although it's not widespread, it's still going to be more taxing to our classroom teachers. But it's going to be more critical that we are able to manage the supports for our students. Anytime you take away a student from a teacher from students, whether it's a teacher or a support staff member, there's going to be more demands on that student. And you know, we like I said, this is not widespread. We're not limiting 5 positions, but we want to make sure that if we do eliminate this position, that we are still adhering to the IEP of the student or these students, that we are being mindful of the increased demands of our classroom teachers, and how are we supporting those teachers as we make these subtractions. This is actually on the next chart, but I'm just going to jump ahead to this too. And then this is something that I've talked about. We did this a couple of years ago, and I think it's important to kind of to go back to this. I've had multiple conversations with Pam LeBeau, and there is the possibility we could go from 3 to 2 school buses. So we'd have 2 bus runs for the elementary school and 2 bus runs for the high school. Now, the initial impact is the savings. We're saving nearly $91,000. But we are going to extend the bus routes for our kids. So with 3 bus routes throughout the district, we're averaging around 25, 30 minutes, give or take. That would jump up to about 45 minutes for a bus run. Is that doable? Yes. Is that within the legal limits? Yes, it is. But it's an increase for our students to be on the buses. There are studies that show that bus travel is the safest means of travel to school. It's safer than, believe it or not, parents driving their kids to school, even though we have a lot of parents who drop off their kids every day. Yes, there is an initial financial savings to our district, but it will come at a cost, and that cost is more time on the school bus. But I think it's something we need to be mindful of as we look at this bigger picture. And this is not losing a person. This is losing a school bus. So then the next slide, and I made a couple, there's one slight change to this which may not be represented in the initial packet, but I'll just go through these pieces kind of quickly. I don't have the impact statements for each one of these, but I'll kind of talk through some of these for you. Staff realignment and offsets. So looking at new hires we made for the school year and what we're projecting for next year, we can save $75,000 with those new hires based on hiring at certain levels, things that we know right now within the budget that we can pretty much guarantee at this point. Looking at our fuel oil cost, we have looked at the last couple of years and our fuel usage, our oil usage over the last couple of years. We can get by with eliminating up to about 15,000 gallons of oil, which would equate to about $40,000. We can look at athletic transportation. As Dante mentioned earlier tonight, he plays field hockey, he plays basketball. We have softball in the spring. We no longer have soccer. We don't have all the levels of basketball we once had. We no longer have any other spring sports. We no longer have cheerleading. So the cost to transport our athletes, our student athletes, has gone down. We can eliminate roughly $17,000 from our transportation budget for athletics. Special director offset. What that essentially means is that we will hire at a lower salary. So that's can be tricky. I don't think that this position has been maybe appropriately funded in years past, but we'll have to offer it at a certain level that we cannot exceed. Bus elimination, like I just spoke about, roughly $91,000 to eliminate one bus. Projection adjustment, what that represents is the adjustment that, when I first projected this budget, looking at our salaries coming in, which we're currently negotiating still, but I see at least a $34,000 savings with salaries that we will project to save based on where we're at right now. Looking at some instructional and supply costs, both at the elementary and the high school, looking at $6,500 at the high school, some copy paper that we had put in district-wide. Custodial services, so looking at extraordinary maintenance and some projects we have with some new internal doors and some supplies, we can scrape about $28,000, almost $29,000 from our budget there. Again, not ideal, because we're looking at cutting money from extraordinary maintenance. If we have something that we need that extra money for, that money is going to be minimized. Library system, the way we monitor library books, we don't have a librarian, we don't need that system. Some supplies and materials for the elementary school, some PE and ELA department supplies at the high school. So total savings, you're looking at $377,000 just on supplies and kind of offsets with some salaries. And the last part is some of the insurance savings that we project for FY26 based on the elimination of some of these positions. Now, these are not, this is not money that's these are not direct costs of the district, these are indirect costs that are incurred by the district or the town. So looking at those positions that we just talked about, the 4 positions that we talked about eliminating that currently were enrolled in insurance, we're looking at just shy of $100,000 in cost savings. So I have a handful of slides to kind of leave us with some thoughts. And like I said, I go back to what I said to start this presentation. The superintendent of schools in any district is here to advocate for students, here to advocate for families and teachers. And the amount of cuts that I just outlined here, which totals just over $950,000, is not something that I would get behind. And the reason being is I think it impacts too many kids, too many families, and does a disservice to the education of our kids here in the district. A level service budget is a maintenance budget. My initial proposal had 2 additional positions. This one does not. This is showing us just what we need to maintain those level service of supports for our kids. This is not wish list spending. As I mentioned with the out-of-district placements, we're not padding that with $100,000 in case we have 2 kids moving to the district. There's no padding there. We have been able to look at some areas where we've been able to scale some things back. Case in point, oil consumption. We had money budget that we haven't been using. Now, that's a kind of a risky gamble because if we have a very cold winter, that price may go up. But looking at the trend, I think we're in a safe spot with that reduction. But a level service budget is simply that, it's maintenance. It's not getting fancy, it's maintaining what we have for our students, our families, and our teachers. Cuts can wind up costing us more. As I mentioned, and I can't understate this, eliminating in-district special education supports, such as a new classroom teacher for the sub-7 classroom, such as a new ABA, that could cost the district far more in the short or long term. Those students go out of district, that could be at the tune of $100,000 plus per student, and that's a cost that we have to incur down the road. From 2019 to 2025, out-of-district spending has increased by nearly 1,000%. So we are losing kids out of district. It's a trend we cannot continue. And I think we are seeing some curbing with that, but we're still seeing too many kids leave the district. If we move forward with these projected cuts, I will guarantee you we'll see more kids leave the district. I guarantee you we'll see more kids leave the district. At what numbers, I don't know. But making this widespread of cuts will negatively impact our district and our students. Short-term versus the long-term savings. Strong schools are the cornerstone of the town's identity and property values. We talked about property values, that's come up in different conversations. I'm not going to fixate on that. That's not why I'm here tonight. But having a strong school district, having a school district that goes pre-K through 12 for all students in the same town is appealing to most families. Splitting that up, however you want to do it, is less appealing. You could argue there's mixed opportunities, different opportunities in different districts. I get that. But anytime you split that district up, it's going to be less appealing for many students and their families. And diminished programs can make the community less attractive to families and prospective residents, impacting the local economy. I don't have any numbers to support that statement. I think that's a statement that we all know is true, but that's a conversation for another time. Why is level service worth fighting for? I've said this a couple times. Level service offers us the benefit of continuing our continuous improvement for our students. Level service is maintenance. Level service is making sure that we give our students what they need and what they deserve. It maintains those critical programs. We talked about the loss of art and music. We talk about the art of the loss of the media specialist. We talk about the loss of the L teacher and the English teacher. Those are positions that are critical to the instruction and learning of all of our students. It avoids the costly out-of-district placements. We know that we have $1.8 million out-of-district placements projected for FY26, of which only around $880,000 is offset by circuit breaker. So it's never going to be fully funded or offset. That we'd love to think it would be. I don't think it's going to happen. 75% is not adequate. I'd love to see that go up even more. Currently, we're at 75% for tuition and far less for transportation. And a lot of these increases are driven by mandates and inflation, and not by program expansion. We talked about the bus contract. We talked about the OSD increase for special education placements. We talked about, like I said, a very fruitful and positive negotiation with our teachers, but there was an increase there. Those are things that we're not going to ever get around, and I think that we need to always be mindful of those things. And further cuts would have irreversible impact on student achievement, engagement, and equitable access to all these classes and these programs. Again, we go back to continuous improvement. We're doing some great things. Do we have a lot of work to do? Yes, we do. We're doing some great work here. And we have some teachers in the audience tonight who are testament to that. But if we start to scale back and we move forward with these projected cuts, we're going to halt that improvement. There's no way around it. The district will look much different moving forward. So my concluding statement is that at this point, I've outlined nearly $1 million in potential reductions necessary to align with the potential funding projections by finance committee, by the town. I think it's contingent on the school committee to give me guidance on how to proceed with next steps, whether to proceed with these proposed cuts, explore additional areas of readjustment, pursue alternative solutions, whatever that may be. But I think this is a critical point for some feedback from the committee. Like I said, I cannot say it enough. I think that this group of projected cuts, proposed cuts, together would be very harmful to this district. And I hope we can find a better way to move forward.
Before we have any discussion, let's see, I guess we need to have a vote on accepting the updates to the fiscal year 2026 Brookfield Public School budget updates. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second it. We can just amend it with whatever we come up with.
Discussion.
I wrote down a couple of comments as we were going through it. I had one question, and I looked it up, and I got my answer. Looking at the school choice revenue versus tuition, that's a pretty drastic trend. That's an awful trend. We're spending a lot of money. I don't know how that's going to turn around. Anybody have any comments about that? That's just what I wrote. Trend will continue.
Well, again, part of that grew out of the idea that kids are somehow, getting ahead of the curve when regionalization was being discussed. So we lost quite a few to Quaybog. That was 40 something.
It was enough for a bus stop.
Yeah, it was enough for a bus stop to be put in before that was even those years before it was even voted on. So there's that, and then you have the ongoing rhetoric. People just badmouth the school district for whatever reason, and just continuous undermining, despite the hard work being done here and the success being achieved here. People hold strong opinions, and it undermines the credibility of the school, and people will take their kids elsewhere. And just a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way. People say, oh, it's failing, and then they take the kids out and they wonder why there isn't enough money in the district. So.
While I would love to see the school be more appealing for people, I can speak, and there are people on this board with me that can speak to the fact that their own personal experience caused them to leave the district, not other people's bad mouthing. So I'm not gonna just let that go, I mean.
I'm not saying it's the only reason, I'm just saying, you know, these are some of the realities that is included, but your mileage may vary.
No, I do think it's a sad state when you have about 30% of the potential student body school choices out. I think it doesn't speak very well to the programming or the experience that people are having. And I would love to see kids come back. I think it would be beautiful to have more of the children come back, not just for the money, but just for the experience and for the way it feels when you grow up in a small town and you go to school with the kids that you live next to and all that stuff. Like, that's a whole rite of passage for childhood in a lot of ways.
I guess I see your point there, but anybody who had a good high school experience doesn't want to see something bad happen. Nobody wants that. Everybody has emotional ties to their high school, but when it's dwindling or draining as it is, that we're talking about the population. And if there was a way to attract people to come here more than we have, then we wouldn't be like, how much? Well, 900,000 or so in the hole in 2024. Observation. I have a question about the instructional coach. Is a person a teacher and that's a stipend for that position? That's what they do?
Standalone position.
And they do the whole district or just like?
Whole district.
High school? The whole district?
Both schools.
Do we have department heads?
We do not.
We do not. The reason I asked was that a stipend for a department head would be cheaper than a full salary, that's all. And the department head usually gets like an extra prep so that they can go visit teachers and make suggestions and talk, things like that.
There are already positions that are not filled that we could fill, but, you know, even in districts comparable, like we don't have a dean of students, we don't have assistant principals. There are positions like that that are just not filled here. And then we already have some positions shared across the full district, so.
Looking at the list, and it's just not positions, I mean, it's each one is a terrible idea in my mind for something that would feel a severe blow to the school. We've talked about this every year at budget time, but it's, you know, and these are the positions that you can get cut without violating state rules and requirements and, you know, the stuff that the school needs in order to be approved to be a school. You know, we're meeting all the curriculum requirements, but we're also taking everything else out. And it's like punishing the kids that are choosing to stay in the school. I hate it. this is a painful list to look at. I wasn't a music kid, I was an art kid, and that was what I loved. Like Mr. McCormick mentioned, that's why I went to school. I stayed after to do artwork and stuff, and things like that.
Is the 900,000 that you proposed, does that bring the school into the NSS? The 900 something?
Roughly 950 is the number that if you sum all those three sections, that gets us close to 104%, thereabouts.
And
So that's still above the 100%, but, and one thing I want to add too is that if you go even lower to get to closer to that 100%, you're just talking about more costs.
does that match what the town wanted for cuts?
I think from what, one of the conversations I've had with Mr. Trentacosta about this is that they were looking at, getting it as in their minds, as low as possible, and using the 100% as kind of the starting point. I would contest, I'll do it again, that if we go that low, we go to 104% of net school spending, we're doing a great disservice to our district. The 114, as I mentioned, where the district's been around 113, 114 every year, give or take. It's still grossly below the state average. And so to go even lower is going to impact that. And like I said, we don't have the grant funding on the federal level that other districts have. We just don't. So we can't offset, if we have 100% net school spending, we're not getting millions of dollars of grant funds to support our special education programs or our Title I programs. We're not. We're getting just over $250,000. So we can't make it up that way.
And so I want to be clear on what we vote to pass the budget as is, we vote to take some and leave some, or is this a kind of a hard conversation to have without talking to the finance people, right? No? I guess that's two questions.
Yeah, we're expected to have input as to what cuts, if any, should be determined, and yeah, that's what we're voting on.
I got a question there.
Who?
Oh, shit.
Yes?
Under state law, the school is, the town is required to fund them at net school spending plus transportation. Transportation is not part of the net school spending. So if you cut that bus, it won't essentially help your dollar amount for net school spending.
So on the second chart here, where you had the additional general budget reductions,
Yeah.
some of those are based on the elimination of those positions that were on the previous one. Some of these are,
No.
these are
No,
independent
those are
of
independent
that.
of that. So that's not, no, that wouldn't be accurate. So those are some positions that we know we're gonna hire at a lower rate. And that's where some of the savings, the projection of the contract piece is in there, the tune of 35,000 roughly. And then the savings on the special ed director, for example, the savings on the SLP and the SLPA, where we had budgeted those and where we project for FY '26 coming in well under budget for those two positions. So that's where that comes from, not from, it wouldn't be the positions twice.
You saying you're under budget for SLP and SLPA?
Not under budget, no, what we put in the initial budget, for a placeholder for a salary, knowing how difficult it is to find SLP, we have a person who is gonna stay on with the district, who is gonna come in at very much under that budgeted rate. We have an SLPA that we're gonna keep on for the district as well.
I know that has been a position that's been hard for this district to keep too.
So that chart that Tim mentioned, is that subtracted from the recommended, is that already taken out of the recommended budget? Or
No, those are,
is
so that's, no, the recommended budget is still at the 8 million number, right? So if we, these are just proposed reductions, none of this has been taken out at this point.
I do have another comment on here, if I have a moment. This does tie in a little bit to the previous discussion, in that we don't know the details, I understand that. However, if we funded net school spending, and we have to eliminate programs or positions, and we tuitioned, it included tuitioning, those programs would still be in place for our students. Because they already have them at the other school. Just putting that out there for comment. We don't know enough, I understand that. We'd like to know some more details about especially cost. But we wouldn't necessarily be losing those programs we're talking about.
We have a target that we're shooting for.
I have a target, yeah, but I mean, I think
Well,
it's,
no,
I mean, I
we
think
have-
to be practical, I
we
understand. No, I don't know exactly, I mean, I think that, like I shared with you, you've received some emails from Joe, I don't know, much more than that. I think that, you know, there's always some, I don't want to say the word trade-off, but I mean, I understand that looking at this picture, we may not be able to save every position that we have on this list. But I think that we need to be really thoughtful about where we land. And do I have a hard number? No, I think that's where I think that I'm looking for some guidance from the school committee. Because I think in my mind, all those positions are important. I think the collective with all those positions really impacts our district.
No, I'm not arguing that, I didn't know if we had gotten an actual number from, that we were supposed to be shooting for. I don't recall
I
seeing
can't vote on this without knowing what the number that we're aiming for is. I can't vote on it.
Eliminating these positions is not ideal at all.
But we need more
And if
information.
the bus isn't gonna impact that school spending, that's kind of a side piece. And just doing the general budget reductions, if we're taking out any contingency for maintenance, that's probably one of the biggest ticket items on there. You're talking about having to come up with money for, you know, special circumstances for maintenance on, you know, around the schools. But at the same time, that's a, you know, $377,000 out of an increase of $995,000. And that would include eliminating a bus.
You know, a whole page of stuff that we can conceivably work with without really impacting the student experience at the school.
And I remember bus rides being long some years. I know my district shuffled buses around. Some years where I lived fell under the umbrella of what was covered, and other years it didn't. And looking back now, you know, you can understand why they made those changes, because they probably face issues like this.
There are some districts that have a bus fee, but I don't think that that would work in this town.
But the bus also is something, unlike a teacher in the position we're talking about here, that you can bring back.
Right.
You know, we can get the bus back at some point if the need arose, we could
Right,
reshuffle.
if we have
It's a
enough
year-to-year
kids to
thing.
support it, right.
Yeah.
A bus fee, you know, I looked at some of the numbers, I wrote that down with Pam from AA, and it wouldn't come even close to what the one bus would equate to for our savings. Because of our limited number of students who take the bus, plus to factor in if we offer any support for families in need financially, so, you know, it's financial hardship, so it's not gonna be a huge cost savings. We wouldn't garner $90,000 from that. And again, we're trying to, again, going back to the size of our district, the size of our community, to tax families one more time with a fee is not necessarily.
No, I'm not suggesting.
No,
that.
I'm just saying that was the rationale behind this as opposed to a fee.
I mean, personally, I think this is our starting point. I can sleep at night with this list.
Out of the total increase of $995,717.31, taking, off the round total for that was 377 exactly, but that leaves
347. Oh, 377.
Well, I mean, there's a little different on that chart. That would be roughly 618,717 remaining.
I'm sorry, you lost me a little bit there. Can
The total proposed increase to the budget is $995,717.31. If we reduced by that list on page 88, the FY26 general budget reductions chart, the total that we have in our slide is $347,000, but Tim had amended it, I believe on staff realignment.
Right.
There's an additional $30,000, so that brings the total savings to $377,000. So, again, subtracting that from the overall increase, the remainder is roughly $618,000.
sorry, but I want to make sure I'm on the same page as you. I don't think I am. Oh, I'm not on the same page, thank you.
You're welcome. It says 88 on my slides. And you can print it.
I printed mine so I could find it easier and look at this.
Is that part of the copy paper budget, or?
I see it, I see it. I'm on the right page now.
I think it's worth pointing out too that in all this, I know there were some changes in the House of Representatives budget, but one of those changes in their proposed budget was they cut rural school aid in half.
Yeah.
We've been talking about that for years, and if we just got a couple of years where we started to see an uptick in it, and they cut it in half.
I think they were saying $16,000, and then it was, from last year, I think it was only 16 million, and last year was only 15 million, and they cut it in half to 7.5 million projected for this year. And 7.5 million spread across all rural districts in the state just does not make sense. And I believe there was a coalition of educators and superintendents and residents of the state that are pushing for 60 million. And that's still, I think they're still working on that in committee, or will be, according to Mr. Durant and Berthium.
What was the, just so I'm clear, what was the motion that was, or what was the number that was stated?
Well, if, based on this general budget reduction,
We're focusing on this one right now.
if that was $377,000 plus or minus 105, it would be $618,000 remaining out of that increase that would need to be accounted for. Since we have members of the finance committee here, can someone from there give us a number to work with? Because ideally, we don't want to cut these programs. I think everyone here agrees that we don't want to do our children a disservice.
And the finance committee doesn't want to see that happen either. We have no money. We have no money. We're in the red by one, I think, Sheila, is it like 1.3 million? The town is in the red. We have no money. So if you could come up with a suggestion, we'll listen. But we're at that point. We all know the last 3 years we've been able to do it. Borrowing from stabilization and free cash. We can't do that. We can't do it anymore. So the finance committee voted net school spending. There was a vote, unanimous vote by all the members of the finance committee. Net school
So you're
spending.
talking 100%?
Pardon me?
100%?
100%?
Not 104, for the,
100%.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
yeah, but not 104, not anything,
Not
just
104.
straight 100%.
100%. Because we have no money. Now, when we met with the state senator and the state rep, I asked them specifically about overrides. What are you seeing in your districts regarding overrides? They're seeing a lot of overrides. They're seeing the vote to override fail. It's failing. They're not on board with overrides. Because you've got to come back the next year or 3 years. You've got to come back. It never gets caught up. This is definitely not something that we want to see happen. It's not just the school department that has to make cuts, just so that we're clear on that.
And these aren't cuts, they're just
Okay.
less requests.
So,
You know,
No, these are cuts. We're
There's a
talking cuts
difference.
now.
It's not a cut, it's a reduction.
No, we're looking at cuts to make this number work.
Well, you're asking for $1 million more. That's not a cut to bring it back to
In
600.
order
That's
to
a reduction
achieve what
in
you
what
guys
they're
are
asking
asking
for.
for, we have a list of programs here that was up on the board
I
that
heard
will
it.
be cut. That is a cut.
I don't know.
And it's cutting programs is what we're
I heard it.
talking about.
Yeah.
Money-wise, yes, we understand we've asked more, we ask more every year,
Yep.
and that's the way, we can give you a detailed spreadsheet with all that stuff, and you can see where the money's going. In order to reach this number, we are talking cuts. And when I look at that list, which I've been staring at for days now, I cannot pick where I can sit here and say, yes, I never did music, music should go. Because someone else, every one of those things on that list is keeping at least one, maybe more kids in this district right now. And who am I to tell them that I don't think they need to have that in their school? That hurts me. It hurts me to say that. But that's the reality of the situation, and So we're looking here at stuff that can be cut from the budget without affecting those particular programs. It'll be a little leaner on some of the stuff. We hope we don't have to use all the oil and things like that. But that's the sort of thing that I can look at and say, yes, we can work with this stuff. It's more administrative and, you know, how we allocate resources as opposed to you cannot learn art class. You are now you don't get to go to the library with a librarian to guide you through books. And that causes me great distress that we're at that point in order to do this.
Well, you're preaching to the choir, you know that. We take no joy in reducing any numbers.
Oh, I know.
And as you know, if you live here, we've got a 20% increase in our taxes this past year. To try to put an override on that with 1/3 of our citizens being senior citizens, good luck. What do we do?
We have some of the lowest in our area as well.
Oh, I know, I appreciate that.
So
Convince-
I would think about that as well.
Listen, convince them.
Lois, what the, we are not the reason.
You're saying no to kids, is what you're doing.
Perhaps you have a solution to this. I mean, we don't like it. What do we say? We can't do it because we don't have the money. We don't have the money. And we have been saying that it's coming, it's going to be coming, and it's here. The town does not have the money. Can I ask one more thing?
Sure.
Sheila, how do we stand right now with meeting the rest of this year's finances, the budget, current?
What do you mean,
We're gonna have-
overall?
Yes.
It all has to go back through, because you're well over 300,000, that has to more. If you cut these back to net school spending plus transportation, there's still 300,000 more that has to be cut.
I know that some people don't like to hear this, but I think we need to find out if there's another option. We need to investigate all options because there isn't enough money. You heard it right from the finance committee. There is not enough money to fund the budget as it is. So the other option is to find out exactly what it would cost per student, 9 through 12 or 7 through 12, whatever it is, per person. And see what that.
I don't think that's a decision that can be made in a panic.
I didn't
To
say.
try to hurry up and get it done for September, Ralph. And that's
just
kind
looking-
of what you're suggesting. I think we just need to deal with the budget right
An
now.
option is not a panic.
No.
If you're gonna consider options, then that's an
You would
option.
have to give the pink slips to the teachers in June, you know that. That's a panic. We are close to June.
I'm concerned about losing programs. We'd be able to keep the programs that we're talking about cutting. That's the option for the students. The discussion is between students versus teachers? Is that what the discussion is boiled down to?
No, it has not.
The same
The
thing.
total, again, just eliminating grade 7 through 12 salaries would be roughly the cost of tuitioning out, just based on the
That include
$11,500
benefits?
figure, which is just, it's a wash. And how can you say that, like, again, there's all these other costs still associated that the town would still be responsible for. We'd still be responsible for net school spending. It doesn't eliminate these overhead costs that are
We don't know what
mandated by the
tuition
state.
cost is.
Does that include benefits?
Does that include this building? I don't think you're looking at the whole picture, and I understand that, this is the start of the discussion. You should be taking a positive look at it instead of a negative look at it, or at least an open look at it.
There's no open look at an override.
Say again?
There's no open look at an override.
Listen, I'm all for it.
Well, you can try.
Yeah, you live in town?
Nope. I do a lot of business in town, though.
Yeah, okay. No, we just got a 20% increase.
My family lives in town, too.
Hey,
Yeah.
guys,
So-
guys,
So the idea of an override, yeah, it should have been put up for vote. It should have been put up for vote. And it was shot down by a single member of the select board. It was not even voted on. He just declared, we're not voting on it. It's not being considered.
And then
Which-
started calling informational sessions.
Right, it just was ginned
That's
up,
a
again,
little
a self-fulfilling
biased.
prophecy.
Okay, so last year you needed about $1 million more. This year you need $1 million more. What about next year and the year after? The overrides, you have to. you
It's
have to
not,
keep doing
it's not
10%.
just about the school, though. Obviously, the rest of the town, the other departments need money as well. And there's
You're
always
saying
gonna be
that.
increase year over year.
Correct.
And the point of an override was that we could have had an informational session that said, look, this is what we need, to spread the load out across the town to support the police, the fire, you know, the highway department and the school. It's not just about the school, it's not just about us. As far as the town budget goes, we realize that. And that's the whole point of the override. But just completely discounting the opportunity to have an override, I think is unfair to the citizens of the town, to even put it up to a vote. Okay, put it up to a vote. If it fails, then we go from there. But to just eliminate that possibility, you know, people talking about, you know, options on the table. Well, to have a major one like that pulled off the table before it can even be discussed by the town, what good does that do?
And then the expectation is that we cut a
That's
whole
not
bunch of
us.
teachers and support staff for the kids that who stick it
That's
out
not
with
us.
us here.
That's not us.
I know, it's just a little
But it happened, it
frustration.
happened.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what's plan B? It happened.
We still need to vote.
So at this point,
There's another question up there.
Yeah.
We don't have to take questions, though, it's not public comment. It's up to John.
the so Tim, at 100, just 100%, what, how much more is that over the,
Like I said, I think it's, I have to go back and look at the numbers some more, but you're talking another minimum 150 to 200,000.
so even if we cut the $377,000, we'd still have a remainder of roughly $820,000. So on top of all these other cuts, all these other positions, we'd have to find an additional $150,000 to $200,000.
this tonight vote is the final vote for the budget?
Doesn't seem likely. So required, so going back to one of your earlier slides, required net school spending. Fiscal year 26 here is at 8,742,559, which is a $252,000 change from the previous year.
That's right at the top, yep. I think what I'm looking for this evening is I've already, the personnel, the staff that are listed on this presentation, I've spoken to those staff members, they know that this is this potential that they're kind of losing their position, or it's being discussed. My next steps would be is there a new number? Are there additional cuts that need to be made? And if so, I can continue to work on that and come back with a new number there, but those are my next steps.
As I said before, I'm prepared to amend the motion to approve, saying that we should accept the cuts from that one page without cutting positions at this point. And I think we need to have an additional conversation about what else is really gonna be on the chopping block to reach these numbers. If we're at 104% of net school spending and we have to cut an additional 4%, it seems like we're getting into some heavier stuff at this point.
So are these positions, do you have, this on 79, the eliminated positions, the total savings is just for the salaries, there's no,
Correct. Yeah,
it doesn't include any other,
the 476 number?
Yeah.
That's just that.
I think right now the best we can do is amend to approve the cuts on the slide 88, the general budget reductions, which would include reducing the buses from 3 to 2, various staff savings and fuel, etc.
Can you put that slide back up there, just so it's on the screen?
What constitutes the insurance savings again? Is reduction in health plans, is that what it is? Does that mean that would be, not following, that's not on that other page, so I was wondering what that meant.
No, that'd be something separate. That's if the positions got eliminated, then those are insurance savings that the town would see outside the school budget.
Thank you.
this full figure is not gonna help you towards your net school spending. I'm trying to say the busing, you wanna pull that busing piece right out.
No, but it's still town money that would be coming out of,
You're gonna save it on, it's less the town would have to give you on the transportation.
Are we talking about these items or this dollar? Is that what we're talking about?
I'm talking about these items totaling up to this dollar.
Right, but the dollar amounts were the savings of this, savings is probably the wrong word, but the dollar amount is what we're.
Yes.
Yeah. So it doesn't necessarily need to be each particular item, but this dollar amount.
Well, these are items right now, as presented here, and viable options that can be eliminated from the budget, or savings that can be found in the budget, that I am okay with right now voting on to approve. I understand we have a way to go, but it's at least a $275,000 jump towards that $285,000 step in the direction.
We'll make a motion to amend, or
Yeah, I'll move to amend the motion and to incorporate the items included on slide 87, 88, titled General Budget Reductions as additional cuts that can be made from the school budget.
Second.
Can you say that again? Amending which part?
Right now, the motion is to approve the budget as presented to us. I am voting to approve the budget, but with the amendment that we will be taking into account these reductions shown on slide 88, titled Fiscal Year 26 General Budget Reductions.
For the full 347?
It's 377 because the first number was wrong, so we said
if
that.
you look behind you, the total was there, $377,000,
On the screen behind you.
$105.50.
So the motion is to go along with these reductions and not touch the other ones, is that essentially, is that what you're
For
saying?
now, until we can,
Okay, just want to make sure.
The conversation on the budget's not fully over, but in order to move on from this, that's our initial round of cuts will be that, before we start to get in positions and programs.
I'll second it.
I did.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
you
how I
did,
seconded it.
all right.
So now we just vote, right?
Right, all
When
in
will we
favor?
discuss it next?
We discuss it?
When? No. For the next part, any more? When will we be talking some more? The motion is to do this for now.
Well, we need two things. We need to know what our target number is, and we need Mr. McCormick to tell us what that other 4% is to get us there, so that we can see the full list of what the impact is on this.
Okay.
Right now, we don't have the full picture. I'm looking at a list of programs that look terrible to cut, and you've acknowledged that. And that's the next step. We need those two items in order to proceed further with additional cuts.
But is that going to be
The next meeting.
the next meeting?
Or we can call a special meeting prior to that. It doesn't have to be the next meeting. Inevitably, at town meeting, it's on a budget item, so town meeting's what, next week? They generally put that off until we know the full picture of state stuff too. Previous years, we've had state funding numbers have changed, and we've been able to offset some additional things that were in the budget, and it worked its way towards a meeting point in the middle.
Tara said town meeting's in June.
Okay,
Okay,
We
yeah.
vote on the budget June 13th.
yeah. So, isn't there one like next week?
There is one next
Yeah,
week.
and then
That's
everything gets
special
pushed
town.
off to the next week, yeah. So, but previous years, we've had good progress with, as the state numbers shake out, because we don't even know that real picture yet either.
Yeah,
Until we know what the actual final chapter 70 number is, it comes down to the wire every year, it's maddening. It is,
And
it
rural
is
school
absolutely
aid.
maddening.
hopefully there's enough loud voices, and again, this is for everyone out there in TV land as well. Get a hold of your state representatives, get a hold of Mr. Durant, Mr. Berthium, in the Senate, and make your voices heard that rural school spending needs to increase to make noise on Capitol Hill in Boston and get the aid to these districts, because it's not just us. Obviously, if other towns are going through, you're looking at overrides, everyone's in a similar kind of boat. And what would be ideal is that there's enough rural school aid to help offset some of these costs. But for now, this is $377,000. We can, it's not, ideally, we wouldn't cut any of this either, because this is all stuff that's useful. But at the same time, athletic transportation, if we're not offering soccer, we don't need to transport soccer players. So, motion's been made and it's been seconded. I think it's time to vote on this modified budget. All in favor of the amended budget, including the general budget reductions on page 88, totaling $377,105.50.
Aye.
And tabling,
Aye.
right?
What's that?
And tabling the other parts, right? For a later date.
Correct.
Next meeting.
I think to be proper, you have to make a formal amendment to my amendment that we will table the other ones.
So moved. Right?
Second.
Second, sorry. It's getting long.
Yeah.
I was trying to,
All in favor of the amended plus tabling?
aye.
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 Administrators report.
So the elementary school just finished up the ELA portion of the MCAS test, which is given through 3 through 5. The school had 100% participation, which is great. We celebrated our students' hard work through a ticket system. Our staff handed out hundreds of virtual tickets that will go into a drawing in May. Students can earn a ticket in 3 different ways, using scrap paper, having the test open for the time that the state gave for recommended testing time, and following post-test expectations. Obviously, didn't have to do those things, but we wanted to just incentivize hard work for our kids, because they did work really hard on the MCAS. And then we're going to celebrate after all the MCAS is done to have a big assembly and celebration and draw physical tickets based on the ones that they won, with prizes, things that we're going to buy through our student activities account. Just to celebrate their hard work on MCAS. So it went really well this year so far. We start math next week for 5th grade, and we're looking to do the same sort of program. And then I had a little picture of one of our boards that actually is taken down now because we have the great art show coming up. So all of our bulletin boards are using that, but we really wanted to talk about how our kids are goal setting and how we're gonna rock the MCAS and do our best. So. Once again, great job by staff and students, really giving their all on MCAS. And then the second part we already talked about a little bit, was our Earth Day celebration. So it took place on April 17th, right before April break. We had 8 stations that celebrated reusable items, planting, outside activities, and more. Those were make and fly a kite out of reusable materials, make a planter, make a bird feeder, decorate a reusable cloth bag, which was really fun to see the kids' artwork on there. We had an archery station out on the tennis courts, which was run by Mr. Reardon. We had some bullseyes hit, which is great. We did some Earth Day bingo. In the STEM room, we did an oil spill pickup. So kids had a little kit about how to pick up an oil spill. And grades K through 5 rotated through all of these stations and just had a great day celebrating Earth Day. So those are my 2 big happenings in March and April.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Any questions or comments from Mr. Murphy? Thank you very much. Moving on.
All right, first I want to start by giving a big shout out to our middle school students for a great effort on the ELA MCAS on March 25th and 26th. The students came ready to go, and we had 100% participation rate for both days, so great job by our middle school kids. March 25th was our STEAM night. I know a couple of members of the school committee were there. We had over 150 students and families attend this event. Many students participated in the STEAM and STEM activities. I want to give a special shout out and a thanks to Mr. Martinez, our art teacher, Mr. Bills and the high school band, Dr. O'Rourke, and Mr. McNeil for the amazing STEM activities. Again, I mentioned earlier, one of the highlights was Mr. McNeil and the rocket launch that night, so it was great stuff. I also want to mention that we were invited by NEASC, which is New England Schools for Accreditation, to give a presentation. Special thanks to Ms. Margolis, Mr. Bills, and 2 of our NBHS students, Anthony Polanco and Sophia Giangrande, who went and gave a presentation to schools from around New England. I got a lot of positive feedback from fellow educators about the presentation, so fantastic job by everybody. April 3rd and 4th, we already mentioned about our trip to Denver to see the applied learning in action. April 15th, we had our middle school awards ceremony in the gymnasium. Students received rewards for perfect attendance, academic excellence, growth, and good citizenship. We had a really good parent turnout, and so I want to give a special thanks to all the families and parents who attended this event. And then later that night, we had our National Junior Honor Society and National Honor Society induction ceremony right here in the Kiva. So I want to give a congratulations to our middle school inductees, Deontay Giangrande, Joshua Hayden, Dylan Woodward, Miles Abreu, Autumn Barassa, Lindsay Ramsey, and Adriana DaCosta. Our high school inductees were Quinn Riley, Whitney Reno, Sarah Mosen, and returning members Nathaniel Stonehouse, George McPherson, Asher Beaupre, Anthony Polanco, Sophia Giangrande, and Dayton Ford. April 17th was our second Wellness Day this year. The event helped build positive relationships between staff and students, as well as addressing social and emotional needs of our students. Big thank you to Ms. Margolis and Ms. Earhart for all your hard work in making this a huge success. And finally, 2 important events coming up. May 9th is our junior prom at the Hitchcock Tavern, and June 1st is going to be our high school graduation ceremony. And that's all from the high school.
Thank you, Mr. DiOrio. Any questions or comments for Mr. DiOrio? Say congratulations to the inductees and also to the students who won those various awards. It's quite an accomplishment, and should feel proud of themselves for putting in the work and achieving excellence. We have a brief technology update. MCAS has been completed for the session between both schools. The March SIMS report has been completed. Student records have been updated to accurately reflect their situations. Network switch damage and January power outage and surge has been replaced in the high school room. And work has been begun but not completed on migrating virtual machines off of our VMware server to an open source alternative. And that's a cost savings measure. And that's from Zachary Berridge, our technology coordinator. Mr. Levy has an update for the facilities. The elementary school, for the month of March, there are 49 scheduled events, covering 8 vendors using various parts of the schools. Continuing to work with Schneider on resolving problems. I think that's electrical.
Those are the software upgrades.
Software upgrades, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a work in progress until they're satisfied with the upgrades. Boiler number 1 fuel pump was leaking and needs to be replaced. Parts on hand kept the cost at a minimum, and the cost was just under $500. At the high school, 3 scheduled events with 2 vendors using the school. Again, working with Schneider on upgrades. Investigating some roof leaks. There's 2 types of roofs. One is the EPDM flat roof, and the other is metal pitched roof. So, addressing those. And he has 6 different locations identified, and looks like there's some degradation. He's got a couple photos. There's some degradation on the roof. Looks like seals around joints where you have a transition between the metal roof and the EPDM. And I believe we are just past the warranty on the EPDM, so go figure. So continue to monitor those and provide updates. He's got a couple projects for paving. He's been documenting locations for paving projects, and he's going to solicit quotes and present those later. And the new school sign was installed, and I'm sure you saw it on the way in. It's nice and bright, and we're able to display multiple messages on that. And he said there will be training on software to place messages on the sign. I assume that's already been done, as there were rotating messages on the sign.
Who chose the new sign?
Who chose it?
Yeah.
I worked with Mr. Healy on picking out the design of it.
Did the old sign have something like, I don't know, Martin Leach Educational?
No, that's the sign in front of it.
Oh, it's in front of it, okay.
Yeah, there's another sign
I
that's,
guess I didn't notice that.
it's faded. It's, last summer we removed some, it was overgrown, so you couldn't see it at all.
Mm.
That's right in front of the electronic sign.
Okay.
There was no discussion about putting the mascot on the sign?
You couldn't match what we had, so I set against it.
All right, I believe that covers the administrator's reports. Onto old business. There was discussion about the library books at the elementary school, and just a follow-up for that, there's already district policy in place that if a parent has an issue with a book in the library, there's a formal process that is enumerated in the policy. And I believe there's a form to fill out and that gets submitted for review. And once it's through that process, if the parent is still dissatisfied with the result, then it comes to the committee for review and a vote. So there's already an established policy as far as the books go. So we're not going to reinvent the wheel because there's already established policy. And this is from, if I remember correctly, it was back in 2016 in the district policy. So I think that kind of covers any concerns. If there's an issue with a book that you have, you can follow the established policy. Moving on, under policy, we have revisions to the use of facilities form, and this requires a vote.
I believe there was an ask to add some language around all the group requests from groups 3 or 4 must be approved by MBS school committee, in addition to the building principal, facilities, and superintendent. So the school committee must approve any new additions to a group that falls within those other 2 categories. That language is number 13 in red.
Make a motion, right? Make a motion to approve the new policy with the addition that the school committee vote on groups 3 and 4. As written. Is that good?
Sure.
You could just say that as written.
Okay.
Seconded.
Can you second? I don't think you
Can I?
I'll second it.
All right. I'll second it. 2.5 it.
can. Yeah, right.
All in favor of the amended school use policy?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
And that will be available on the website.
Yeah.
Once the draft is taken away, right?
No new business. We move to executive session, but we need to return for adjournment. So I move that we,
Is that going to do it?
sure,
I move that we adjourn the regular meeting and go to executive session, and we will only return to the regular meeting for the purpose of adjourning that.
I'm going to interrupt for a second because,
We have a motion,
Regarding-
you
Okay.
can't, I don't think you can you interrupt the motion?
Well, once someone seconds it, we can talk about it.
Okay. Second.
okay, thank you. I know you guys aren't gonna like it, but you brought up we were talking about the tuition. You said we need more information, but we didn't say anything about how we're gonna get it or what information we need. And we didn't talk about how, when we're gonna talk about that stuff again. Or are we?
You're off the committee, Ralph. This is your
Are you
last
done?
meeting.
Are you done? Because you've interrupted me about 3 times tonight.
well,
Thank you.
we were already past that topic.
I
and Here we
understand.
are at adjournment.
I'm bringing it back.
So it's not time for that
Okay,
topic
so-
of discussion. We're past
That
that
tells me
point.
we're
That will remain on the meeting minutes at every meeting we have until it's resolved in some way or another.
Right now, we're working through the budget. So, all in favor? Did we get a second? Thank you. All in favor of adjourning the meeting as noted by Mr. Canada? Aye.
Bye. Oh, wait, we're going to executive session. Tim Canada, yes.
Gary, yes.
Tanya Matthews, yes.
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Thank you, everyone, for sticking with us. Impressive.